An entitled Karen takes all the good seats at a cafe as she literally goes on a power trip and takes way more seats than she and her daughter are ever going to use. But thankfully, karma came their way in the form of a stubborn couple who wasn't willing to take her crap, resulting in one of the funniest interactions I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my local Barnes & Nobles in Texas is not that large. The cafe has seating for about 30 people tops, with most of those at 6 to 7 tables away from the window. We also only have one counter across from the barista station, with seats for about 4 people. The counter is immediately to the left as soon as you enter the cafe area. These are close to the window, and they are coveted seats if you can't get a table alongside the window. Being a Barnes & Noble nerd, I always know when to show up and get a good table close to the windows. Well, I managed to snag one of those tables as always, with the window to my right, the counter seating directly in front of me, and the register and serving area to my right. I was happy to get a window side table as I often cannot, and not have to sit at the counter with its 4 stools. As I was enjoying my coffee and magazines, I noticed that the 4 stools at the counter were only half occupied. There was a tallish 50-something-year-old blonde woman and her 17-year-old daughter 2 stools away. The trouble is, they had plopped their clothing and backpacks on the other stools as some way of taking up 4 stools instead of the 2 that they needed. The daughter was perusing the store and wasn't even using her seat, but the mom had them taken with backpacks and a purse to save them. I actually saw a couple come in and were denied a seat at the counter due to the mom telling them that those seats were occupied. And when the daughter eventually returned, mom seemed to celebrate her victory with her. After the second time I saw this happen, I put away my magazine and I decided to have some fun. When a third couple came in and were driven away by this Karen, I smiled and waved them over. I offered them to take my seat, and for reference, I was taking up 1 seat at a 4-man table, and after they sat down, I explained to them what was going on. They were a little put out by being denied a decent seat at the counter, and it was then that they decided to take my advice. So they walked 10 feet back to the counter and they pulled out the stools, only to be told by mom that those seats were taken. But you know what? They plopped their butts in the seats anyways, and they told this Karen that they'd be happy to move when the owner returned. Well, the mom indignantly took the backpacks and the purse from the left 2 seats and pouted for a while just looking around. The daughter came back and a smallish argument ensued, and this stubborn couple offered to move when the others came by to reclaim their seats. Well, this entitled Karen was very put out and was angry that her scam was not working. She wound up putting both backpacks and daughter's purses on the other 2 seats, and this couple ignored her and just enjoyed their coffee. And naturally, she left very soon after that. After that, this stubborn couple turned around and gave me a smile with a thumbs up. And honestly, I was so glad to witness this happening. Okay, I love when stuff like this happens because I can't stand when people save the good seats for themselves only to not use them. If they had someone else coming along, I would completely understand, but it seems like they just wanted like elbow room, even though I'm assuming there was probably plenty of space by those spots. So they were just being selfish, like that's all this comes down to. They didn't want to share their seats with anybody else and they wanted it all for themselves. And that's not fair. Like, I don't care how you stretch it, that is not fair for anybody else coming in. So honestly, I love the fact that you kind of coordinated this in a roundabout way, because this Karen and her daughter absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for handing over my dad's tax returns over to my mom just to help her extend her alimony with her husband? Because right now my dad says I breached his privacy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 37-year-old male and I spent most of my adult life working for my parents' company. It's a small but successful firm that does litigation support, architectural design, project management, and engineering consulting. Our whole family helped build it. After school, weekends, holidays, you name it, we were there. And I started working there full-time right after high school. My parents had a rocky marriage, mostly due to my father's chronic infidelity. He used the company's resources to carry on multiple affairs and even hired ladies of the night for himself and for his clients, if you know what I mean. When my parents divorced in 2011, all of this came out. My sister and I sided with our mother, while our older half-brother, who is my mom's son from a previous marriage, took our father's side. Fast forward, and a couple of years later, I split with my son's mother. My father then hired a lawyer for her, and not just any lawyer, but the wife of a longtime client of his who had also been a close confidant during his divorce. This wife and husband legal team took my custody case all the way to trial. During the trial, it had came out that they had been given my privileged medical records by my father. The judge admonished the attorney but didn't pursue any serious disciplinary action. Ultimately, we ended up with split custody after they racked up over $140,000 in legal fees. I then ended up suing my father over the breach of my privacy, and after 2 years of litigation, I dropped the case because my sister convinced me to, all for the sake of our mom. In exchange, my father father agreed he would help her out as she aged and dealt with health issues. Fast forward to now, and my father makes over $1.2 million a year and has completely cut my mom off from alimony. She has health problems and no other income. Recently, he left his tax returns open on my laptop, so I gave them to my mom so she could try to extend her alimony. Now, my father says I crossed a line and that I'm violating his privacy and being vindictive, but I feel like my dad's the one who broke trust first years ago. And just to be explicitly clear, my father handed the documents to me, and by doing so, he waived his privacy rights. The taxes show that his income has been 3 times the amount his alimony was based on since about 2 years prior to his divorce. And so on that end, I feel like it's just incredibly dishonest. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, I can't speak on any legality of any of this because I just don't know the details of what is and isn't legal. But seriously, if I was in your shoes, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. Your dad literally screwed over your mom. He cheated on her God knows how many times, and then has the audacity to not even give her the amount that she's owed. So no, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk here, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for having Dr. Pepper in my water bottle at the gym? Because after my boyfriend drank some of it, he spit it out in a fit of rage, furious that it wasn't water like he was expecting. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I want to start off by saying that I love Dr. Pepper. I probably drink like a can a day, which I totally know isn't great, but I eat super healthy and I go to the gym religiously, which is where this incident took place. Me and my boyfriend, who we will call Charlie, usually work out together. Yesterday evening, before we went to the gym, I filled up my water bottle with Dr. Pepper. I hadn't had one yet that day, and I was craving it so bad. If I needed actual water at the gym, I was just planning on drinking from the water fountain, so my boyfriend didn't have limited water because I was bringing an extra. I made sure to tell Charlie this as he really doesn't like Dr. Pepper, and I didn't want him drinking some from my water bottle. And for reference, we sometimes will take sips from each other's bottles. He just said, okay, no problem, and that he'll avoid my bottle. Well, fast forward to when we were wrapping up at the gym, and Charlie had just had an intense set and just grabbed the first bottle he saw, which just so happened to be mine. Before I could even look or react, he was spitting the Dr. Pepper out on the ground. He was sputtering angrily at me and told me that it was such a stupid idea to put Dr. Pepper in my bottle and that I should have yelled to him when he picked it up. I told him I'm sorry that he had a mouthful of Dr. Pepper when he was so out of breath and just wanted some water, but that I didn't have any time to tell him because he was just too quick and I was focused on counting my own sets. Well, he wouldn't take this as an answer and just stormed off, which was super embarrassing as I was the one who had to clean up his mess. By the time I ran out of the gym to catch up with him, he had already messaged me that he had left in an Uber. He's only sent me one text message since yesterday, saying that we'll talk about my Dr. Pepper thing later. I'm literally so confused and I just need to know if I was in the wrong, because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, your boyfriend is kind of a weirdo. You literally told him, hey, I have Dr. Pepper in this bottle, don't drink it. And he even acknowledged like, okay, no problem, I'll avoid it if I see it. But then he turns around, probably in front of a bunch of people, drinks a Dr. Pepper and then spits it out on the ground like a toddler. Like, hey, guess what, stupid? You literally knew it was there, but you decided to ignore it anyways and then embarrass your girlfriend in the process? Like, what's going on right now? That's not fair. You can't treat someone like that. And for him to even walk away and make you clean up after him? Like, no, I don't think so. That is not okay. That kind of behavior is super immature and there is no good reason to be doing that. And your boyfriend absolutely owes you an apology. Like, I'm sure you weren't the only ones in the gym and I'm sure other people were watching, and to have someone do an outburst like that is so cringy and so weird. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing Dr. Pepper to the gym. You literally warned him about it and he still made a huge deal about this. So seriously, the only thing that he needs to discuss is how he's going to apologize to you for the way that he treated you, because that, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbor to pay for damages for his trampoline that flew onto my yard during a storm and literally damaged my fence and my yard? Because right now he's claiming it's not his problem, and at this point, I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so today at about 5:00 p.m., I got text messages from our great next door neighbor who said that a trampoline came flying in a storm and damaged our fence and our barn behind our house. I assessed our security system via my cell phone, and I found out the trampoline came from the neighbors across the street. Now, as a side note, we are not friends with these neighbors, but up to this point have had no problems with them. I inspected the damage and our fence was destroyed and almost completely knocked flat. The trampoline hit the barn so hard, it dented the metal walls and broke 2 panels on the garage door. There were all sorts of other minor scraping along the sides of the barn as well. As I was surveying the damage, the husband of the neighbors across the street came walking up the driveway, and he did not appear concerned at all, and more than anything, he seemed really annoyed. I held our broken gate open for for him to enter the yard and look at the damages with me. After reviewing the damage together, he asked me what I wanted to do about the damages. I was still a little shocked, and I said, well, your trampoline caused the damages, so you are responsible. And I'm guessing the damages were between $5,000 to $10,000. The fence was decorative aluminum to appear like wrought iron, and the damage section was maybe 4 to 5 panels and cost us approximately $4,000 3 years ago. The garage door was insulated and was around $3,000 2 years ago, but I have no idea how to estimate the cost of repair for the dented, scraped, and damaged metal walls of the barn, which again is only 2 years old. The neighbor across the street then said, well, it's all damage to your property, so you should put all the damages through your insurance. Well, I was again shocked and incredulous at the audacity of this person. I then told him I'm an attorney and I actually am in my state. Your failure to secure the trampoline caused it to fly into my yard and destroy my fence and damage my barn. I'm not putting a claim on my insurance because I don't want my premiums to increase. I have great insurance and an umbrella due to the ponds on the property, and I have a separate rider for the barn just to be safe. And due to my profession, I made sure I have great insurance. I then told him I can either get quotes to fix the damages that you can pay for, or you can make a claim against your homeowner's insurance. He said to me, well, I'm not paying cash and I'm not making a claim against my insurance. This was an act of God. So I said to him, okay, I'm sorry you see it that way, but my firm sues around 200 cases per week, and I'm not trying to brag, it's just a fact. So suing one more will not be that difficult. Well, it's then that my neighbor decided to finally agree to put his homeowners on notice and exchange his phone number with me. Several colleagues and my mentor said he probably never put the trampoline on his insurance, and an unreported trampoline can lead to cancellation of his homeowner's insurance. So seriously, am I the jerk for insisting that he pay for the damages caused by his trampoline flying onto my property, regardless of how it happened? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. You are not the jerk in the slightest. This guy is 100% responsible in my uneducated and unqualified opinion, and I can't believe he would try to dodge responsibility like that. Seriously, this isn't an act of God. This guy didn't tie down his trampoline and now it hit your property. Like seriously, this falls on his shoulders entirely. So yeah, hopefully he gets the picture, because I'm sure this is an easy case for someone like yourself, especially when you handle stuff like this on a daily basis. My parents control just about every aspect of my life, and despite the fact that I'm 20 years old and still in college, and also unfortunately still living with them, I feel like I'm at my breaking point, as I feel they're changing me for the worst, leaving me in a situation where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for my entire life, my parents have been strict. I've always been known as the friend who can't stay out past 8 o'clock p.m. or can't do this or that unless my parents know one of my friends personally and really well, like if they were good friends with my parents. When I was under 18 years old, my parents wouldn't let me hang out with a friend unless they came over to my house first, and my parents met them to see what they were like as a person. Also, there were some things that they were particularly strict about, like with money. When I was 18, I went to my senior prom, and when I was going to buy my dress, my dad gave me a $100 bill to go get a prom dress after school one day. He specifically told me to keep the money in my car, but instead I kept it zipped up in my backpack all day. And when I told him that, my God, he flew off the handle and threatened to take away my money because I'm apparently irresponsible with it. He said a kid could have stole my money or I could have lost it, but I'm responsible with money, or at least I thought I was. I felt better having $100 on me rather than in my car, but I don't know. I guess I should have just left it locked in my car. I remember crying at the lunch table while he was chewing me out on the phone, and my friends were all very concerned. My dad said because I didn't listen to his specific directions, I didn't deserve to go to prom or even carry money around. I almost lost that privilege, but I did end up going to prom even though he complained about it the entire night. He told me he likes a daughter who is loyal and obeys his commands, and I did the opposite of that day. I also wasn't a bad kid at all in school. Teachers looked up to me and I tutored other students. I had nearly a 4.0 GPA, but strangely, my parents still treat me like some kind of dumb teenager who doesn't know anything. It's frustrating trying to prove to your parents that you are a responsible adult, and then you make a small mistake that just really disappoints them. Flash forward to now, and I'm 20 years old in community college, still living with my parents, and nothing much has changed. I have a part-time job now, but my parents are still strict. I cannot stay out after 11 o'clock p.m. now unless I have a good reason to be out that late. I still cannot hang out with certain friends or go certain places if they think those people are bad influences on me, or if the place I'm going to is a ripoff or too far away to travel, as they would put it. They also say that my life revolves around theirs. Any plans I make affects theirs for the day, and most of the plans they make, in my honest opinion, aren't even that important. Like just little house projects that keep themselves busy with, for example, yard work or working on the car, cleaning, and stuff like that. And they always want my help with these things, and when I tell them I have have a test to study for or an assignment to complete, they say I should have been proactive and got it done before the day they needed my help on one of their projects. Anyways, a few days ago, I started a new relationship with this guy, and he is really awesome to me. He treats me well, he is super kind and respectful, and is willing to put up with my strict parents. I'm just afraid the relationship won't last long because of how strict my parents are. I told my mom I have a boyfriend now, and she was disappointed in me about it, and went on this lesson about how I need to be responsible and not ruin my life, and why I should wait until I'm 25 to date anybody. However, she did wish me the best of luck and hope for the best whilst also expressing her disapproval of it. As for my dad, I'm not even gonna bother telling him about my relationship for now because I know he will have a big problem with it. If I mentioned that I was in a relationship, he would immediately chew me out and force me to break up with the person I was with. It was either that or make him come over so he can meet him first and then see if he's even a good guy for me. Then he forces us to break up anyways because apparently I'm too young for a relationship and should wait until I'm 35 to date anybody because I'm not mature enough in my 20s to make a decision like that. I don't want to keep my boyfriend a secret from my dad, but I also don't want my dad to disown me and look down on me for being in a relationship. Now that I'm 20, I just want my parents to stay out of my personal business at least. They always want to know what I'm up to, where I'm at, who I'm with, etc. I just want to be able to enjoy myself without them getting into my business constantly. Even when I don't get out of class or work on time, they call me until I answer the phone and ask why I didn't call. I guess I should be grateful that they care, but I feel like there's a point where it becomes more overbearing and stunting my growth as an individual rather than being good parents. Now, I always have them in the back of my mind whenever I'm planning things or wanting to do something all by myself. I feel like I became the person they want me to be and not who I want to be. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this sounds miserable and I would not want to live in that kind of environment. I mean, think about it. These people are seriously locking you down and not allowing you to do anything with your life. Now, I know for me, if I was in that situation, I would 100% be planning to move out. And from the sounds of it, the original poster is trying that right now. They don't have a lot of money and they're trying to save up so they can get an apartment somewhere. So hopefully that happens sooner than later because what you're describing with your parents sounds absolutely miserable. And I know personally I would not want to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to split parking costs with my roommate after she made a big fuss over nothing? Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation. My roommate and older sister, let's call her Kay, demands that we split the parking for our apartment even though she is the only one with a car. We recently moved into a new apartment and we lived together before this in a different apartment, but for safety reasons we had to move to our current place last month. Our lease provides 2 covered parking spots, but we have to have 2 cars registered under our apartment in order to get 2 parking passes. Since I don't have a car, as mine got stolen a few months ago, only she has got a parking pass. She had a talk with me right after we signed the lease to this apartment, where she, very condescendingly, told me that I was not going to get my parking pass because I don't have a car, and it would stay as a guest-only parking pass. Despite the aggressive tone she used, I agree with her until she told me that I would not be able to let my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. After that talk, I told her I would not be paying for parking if I do not get to use my half however I please, and then we just left it at that. Fast forward and we just got our first monthly bill, and I sat her down to talk about how much each of us had left to pay since we've both been paying it off throughout the month of March. I started by subtracting parking costs from the total and then dividing it by 2 in order to get my fair half. Kay then immediately started questioning my math, asking why I'm subtracting that amount, but I explained that's what we agreed on before moving into this new apartment. Kay claims that since the parking costs are the same for 1 or 2 passes, then that means I should have to pay for half. I immediately agreed to pay for half of it and informed her I will go register my boyfriend's car so I can get the second parking pass and use it however I want. I was even generous enough to tell her when her boyfriend visits, I can let him borrow it for the weekend as long as his visit doesn't overlap with my boyfriend visiting me. For added context, my boyfriend is a full-time student and also has a full-time job, which means he gets 1 day off a week, so he sleeps over the night before his day off and his night off and leaves the day after pretty early. Kay's boyfriend lives 6 hours away and doesn't get to visit as often, and we're talking maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks. Kay believes it's not fair for both of us to pay for parking, but only my boyfriend gets to park nearby, while her boyfriend has to park his work truck further away from our apartment. I tried explaining to her that that was not the case, and that she would be paying for the parking pass she uses in her car, and I would be paying for my own parking pass to do with it whatever I pleased, including letting my boyfriend borrow it when he sleeps over. The argument just went in circles over and over again, with her saying it's not fair that her boyfriend doesn't visit as often as mine, and he would have to still park far away, but my boyfriend visits very often and gets to park nearby every time. I I want to add that she had the master bedroom in our past apartment, and we didn't pay any difference in price because parking was already included in the rent, not an additional cost like here. I have the master in our current apartment because we had agreed it was a fair trade-off since she had the better bedroom last time, but now she's taking it back, claiming that since I have the better room, I should have to pay extra in rent, or I could just make it up by splitting parking costs while reaping none of the benefits. So truly, am I the jerk? Because right now I'm super frustrated. No, this is so dumb. Your roommate's being super selfish. They're trying to be like, yeah, but what about my boyfriend? And it's like, dude, your boyfriend is never here. He visits once every 2 months, whereas your boyfriend is here pretty much all the time. And it also only makes sense that you have a parking pass just in case you need one. Who knows, maybe you get the car back and you need that to get around. So no, you're not the jerk, and I think your roommate's being an idiot, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. My entitled stepdaughters ruined my vacation with my family after they intentionally hide my daughter's passport, demanding that she stay behind instead and babysit their children. So as a result, in a fit of rage, I canceled the vacation, and now I'm being called a jerk, and I seriously don't know what to do. First off, I want to say that every name in this story is fake. I've been married to my wife for 5 years. I have a biological daughter by the name of Sarah, and I also have 2 stepdaughters by the name of Mary and Hannah. They're 25 and 28 years old. Both are single moms and live with us currently. There has been issues about the stepdaughters asking my daughter to babysit the kids. My daughter didn't have a problem with it at first, since this is what she does to earn money, but since her stepsisters don't pay her much, she would refuse to babysit. We worked this out by having my wife take care of paying for the babysitting. I planned a family vacation for 3 days, and I wanted everybody to come along. However, both of my stepdaughters suggested that my daughters stay home and that she should watch the kids since my wife doesn't want her grandkids to come along. They said it's because the kids are used to my daughter and hiring another babysitter would cause issues. And also, they said that my daughter isn't too fond of our destination, but it's obvious that she wanted to go. They insisted that my wife offered to pay her double, and there was just a lot of back and forth on this until I demanded that they stop bringing it up. We were supposed to go last week, but when everyone had bagged their bags and it was time to go, my daughter found out that she didn't have her passport on her. We searched her bag like crazy, and then we went home and we searched there as well. My wife and my stepdaughters all kept insisting that we go back to the airport or else we would miss our flight. They insisted that my daughter stay home with the kids. They even told the new babysitter to go home because she was no longer needed, but I refused to go, and I kept searching for the passport until one of the stepdaughters admitted that she helped hide my daughter's passport just to get her to stay home with the kids. And when I found this out, I was absolutely furious. I was so livid. I tried to get her to tell me where it was, but she said that her sister had it, but the other stepsister denied it. I then threatened to cancel the entire vacation if they didn't give it back, and it was only then that they gave it back to me. But even after that, I decided to actually cancel the vacation, and I blew up at them and I berated them. They stayed upstairs for a while, and my wife refused to speak to me and said that I punished my stepdaughters for worrying about their kids and wanting them to stay with someone that they knew. I then got told that I overreacted and I ruined the trip for everybody. And this is all honestly so infuriating, and I seriously don't know what to do. First off, what is wrong with your stepdaughters and your wife? And yes, I'm including your wife in this situation because she absolutely knew what was going on. There's no way she wasn't conspiring against your daughter. And the fact that she would defend her stepdaughters for their atrocious behavior is proof enough that she is not a winner. I mean, seriously, what were they thinking? Did they really think they were going to get away with this? Did they seriously think this vacation was going to happen without this guy's daughter? Like, are you kidding me? It's one thing to make a request and say, hey, could you babysit my kid? But it's another thing entirely to try and force this girl to stay behind just to watch your stupid children. I mean, how selfish and disrespectful can you get? They literally only cared about their own agenda and went out of their way to basically ruin this vacation. Like, the dad in this situation didn't do anything wrong, because if I was in his shoes, I absolutely would have canceled the vacation as well. I mean, there's no way this is appropriate. They literally hid her passport just to get her to stay behind. And that's personally an entirely different level of crazy, and personally, I think it's time for them to move out. They have clearly been staying there for a little bit too long, and they're a little bit too comfortable with the handouts that they're clearly receiving. So if I was in your shoes, I would start making those arrangements sooner than later, because these stepdaughters sound incredibly selfish, and they don't care about you, your vacation, or your daughter in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law from my house over the tomato sauce that she ruined? Here's what happened. happened. So I have an older brother who's married to his wife who's 33 years old. I get along well with her, except for this one point. If you don't keep an eye on her, she will get into the kitchen and add seasonings to whatever is cooking. She thinks she's fixing stuff, but in reality, she's kind of ruining our food. This Saturday, I received 40 pounds of tomatoes. It took me the whole weekend to turn it into a sauce that I was planning to can. I can it plain, and then I add whatever seasonings and herbs is needed, depending on the recipe. They came to take a bag of spare clothes for one of their kids, and in the 5 minutes it took me to get it, she managed to get into the kitchen, add salt, pepper, olive oil, garlic powder, and Italian herbs to all 5 of the pots that were simmering on the stove. And when I asked her what she was doing, she had the audacity to say, "This sauce needed some taste, so I added some for you." Like, I've never told her to not touch what I was cooking before. I was so angry that I knew I couldn't be calm talking with her, so I simply walked to my brother, told him to take the clothes and his wife, and that she is no longer welcome in my house. Now, she had followed me and was shocked and started apologizing, but I just kept ignoring her. I added that he should come by tomorrow to take the sauce that his wife ruined, because otherwise it would be thrown away, and that I expected 40 pounds of replacement tomatoes. They left, and he came back with the tomatoes, an apology letter from her, and an apology letter for the carrot cake that I made previously. But I told him that I stand by my decision. But now my parents got involved. Since I am the one that usually hosts, and since she is not allowed in my house, I told them to make alternate plans for Memorial Day. My husband says that I am in the right, but my parents say that my reaction is way overblown. So this honestly begs the question, am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law from my house after she ruined my tomato sauce? I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, because what she's doing is really weird. You don't just go into someone's kitchen and start adding all these other ingredients simply because you think it's gonna make it taste better. Like, she's just adding whatever she wants and says, okay, this will make it taste better. Like, what are you talking about? Doing that without asking is so toxic. So for the original poster, I don't blame you for getting upset. And I don't blame you for saying, nope, you're not coming back to my house. Maybe this is a temporary thing, but at least for this weekend and this celebration, your sister-in-law is gonna learn a valuable lesson. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. Today, I messed up by accidentally donating $15,000 to a charity when all I intended to donate was about $150. And once I started receiving hundreds of messages online thanking me for my donation, I knew that I was in trouble. Here's what happened. So this happened in February of last year, but my friends have been telling me that I need to put this online. So here goes nothing. My wife and I are both 31 years old at the time of this story, and we moved into a new 3-unit apartment building in San Francisco. One of our neighbors is a 70-something-year-old retired veteran. We'll call him Joe. That's not his real name. For context, Joe is a white American guy, and he's also a devout Hindu priest. One day, I ran into Joe in my hallway, and he tells me about this charity that he manages for a community in Bangladesh. I wanted to support my neighbor and the charity, so I asked Joe to send me the GoFundMe link. The next day at work, I go on the GoFundMe page and donate $150. Well, or so I thought. Moments later, I get a text on my phone warning me of an unusually large transaction on my credit card. I'm confused, and I swipe it open to look at the text message. It says I have made a payment of $15,000 on GoFundMe. Now, immediately, I'm sweating. How could I have donated $15,000? I spend the next 10 to 15 minutes retracing my steps, and finally, I realize my credit card starts with the numbers 4 and 1. It seems I had accidentally started typing my credit card information while my cursor was still on the donation box. And just like that, $150 became just a little bit over $15,000. I call GoFundMe support line in a panic, and when I finally connect with a human, I explain what happened. He tells me not to worry, and they will initiate a refund of the transaction, which should process in 3 to 7 business days, which is a huge relief. But then I ask the agent if the charity will be able to see the donation on the GoFundMe page until it is refunded. The agent then asks me what I mean by that. So I ask him, what do you mean, what do I mean? Will they be able to see the $15,000 donation? Unfortunately, yes, the agent tells me they will be able to see it until the refund process is complete. I tell him that's a big problem, as the entire GoFundMe had hardly raised that much money at that point. Surely they will notice their fundraiser doubling overnight, right? My plan was to knock on Joe's door the following morning to give him the full story so that he could pass it along to his contacts in Bangladesh. But when I woke up the next morning, I looked at my phone and I saw I had 40 plus notifications on Facebook. Someone had sent me a friend request, had liked many of my posts, and had sent me many messages. Immediately, I was concerned when I saw that the individual individual messaging me had a Hindu name, but I never could have imagined what I saw when I opened his first message. The man had sent me a video of himself from Bangladesh, surrounded by dozens of impoverished and hungry people holding bags of food, thanking me by name for my generous donation. At this point, I've leapt out of my bed and I'm pacing around the room. Part of me wants to scream, part of me wants to crack up laughing. I start swiping through the man's messages, and it is picture after picture of poor Bangladeshis thanking me for my kind donation. Literally hundreds of photos of frail, elderly, disabled, and malnourished individuals holding signs with my name on it, thanking me profusely. Needless to say, I couldn't live with myself just donating $150 after seeing how the community responded to the $15,000. I decided the least I could do was be able to add a zero, and so I donated $1,500 once the original donation was refunded. The charity's host was incredibly gracious and understanding, and he explained to me that $1,500 goes very far in Bangladesh. Ultimately, I think the whole experience is a win-win. I helped a great cause, and I got a funny story in the end. That is literally worst case scenario. I can't imagine accidentally donating $15,000 to a charity. Also, why is your credit card set up in such a way where that kind of transaction can go through right away? Like, that sounds like a massive security risk for you and your credit cards, and that is not something that I would let happen ever again. But thankfully, everybody in this situation was really cool about it, and they were still very grateful for your donation, even if it wasn't $15,000. Am I the jerk for threatening to never talk to my dad again if he forces me to give up my cat, all for the sake of his new girlfriend? Here's what happened. So I live with just my dad. My mom left when I was 5 years old, and I haven't seen her since. And 2 years ago, my dad started dating a woman by the name of Karen. Karen is not her real name. She's okay. We definitely aren't close. It's kind of me doing my thing and Karen doing her own thing. I figured I'll be out of the house soon, so it doesn't really matter if my dad's girlfriend and I don't get along. Except we now have a big problem. I have a cat I got when I was 13 years old, and she was just a kitten. She has helped me through a lot of tough times. When Karen first came over, she saw my cat and said that she was allergic. Well, I personally don't believe it. She has been over multiple days, and her eyes don't get puffy or watery. She doesn't sound congested or anything, and she also doesn't get hives or a rash or anything like that. So I'm calling baloney, because she constantly talks about how bad her allergies are, and yet I see no symptoms. Well, Sunday, my dad proposed, and of course, Karen said yes. Her apartment lease is coming up for her to renew if she wanted to, but last night they were talking about Karen just moving in with us. Then she said to me, well, if I'm gonna be living here full time, the cat's got to go. She complained she's not always gonna be dealing with her allergies, but I told them no, I'm not willing to give up my cat. My dad pleaded with me, saying it's unfair to Karen to have to deal with her allergies all the time while living with us. Karen kind of had a smirk on her face while my dad was trying to bargain with me. In that moment, I knew she was definitely faking it. After Karen left, I told my dad I will never forgive him if he makes me get rid of my cat. And I also told her that I think Karen is faking being allergic to cats. He then got mad and told me I'm being a selfish brat, and I just don't want him to be happy. I know some people will say my cat is just a pet, but she's honestly family to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Obviously, first and foremost, you are not the jerk in this situation, and this is an unfortunate window that you can see into how you're going to be treated in this family. Karen is going to take priority, and your dad's going to be looking to you to try and solve this problem. I mean, what a travesty. How can this lady honestly say, it's time to get rid of the cat, I'm moving in? Like, what are you talking about? I'm of the same opinion as the original poster. Cats or animals or dogs or whatever, they are a part of the family, and they are something that you need to take care of. And it's really funny that your dad's saying that you're being a selfish brat and that you don't want him to be happy, when in reality, he should be trying to take care of you, as well as your needs. The original poster, by the way, is only a teenager in this situation. So the fact that the dad would be this selfish towards their daughter, and obviously treating their kid like garbage just for the sake of this weird lady he's marrying, is honest proof that he has tunnel vision to how toxic this lady is. I mean, that cat was there long before this girlfriend came along, and in my opinion, it's incredibly unfair and very cruel for the original poster to give it up, all because this stupid Karen wants to get her way. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go on a trip with my pregnant fiance that I literally cannot afford? Here's what happened. My fiance and I are expecting a baby in November. We both have full-time jobs, a mortgage, and 2 dogs. I cover around 80 to 90% of the household expenses, including the mortgage, the power, insurance, internet, and water bill. She only pays for gas and groceries, and I usually cover the bills bill when we eat out. We've had this arrangement for several years, and we have this arrangement because my income is a lot higher than hers, and she has a car payment and student loans she's paying off. Recently, with a baby on the way, I've expressed the need for more careful spending. We've been discussing bigger expenses. However, today she suggested on going to Mexico to visit her godkids. She got upset when I expressed my inability to afford an unplanned trip, especially considering the expenses that we've already had this year. We took a trip to Denver in April, went to South Carolina last month for my uncle's birthday party, and I'm soon heading back to South Carolina to discuss his will since he has cancer and wants my assistance with carrying out his will. The tickets for the Mexico trip alone are currently around $600 each, and the total cost of the trip will likely be at least $2,000, considering other expenses as well. When she asked if I wanted to go, I honestly told her that I can't afford it due to the unexpected expenses we've already had this year. I have more credit card debt than savings at the moment, and I need to focus on reducing it. Additionally, as first-time parents, we should be financially prepared for any unexpected expenses that may arise. I also reminded her that I lent her $2,000 recently to pay her income tax bill, which she promised to repay as soon as she could save up the money. She accused me of being selfish and claimed this might be our last chance to travel before the baby arrives. I suggested a more budget-friendly alternative, like a local trip to San Antonio, using my accumulated points for a 2-night stay. However, she instantly rejected the idea and insisted on seeing her godkids. I then told her that if she really wants to go, she can do so, as I believe it's more important for us to be financially stable before the baby arrives in 5 months. We haven't made any major purchases yet, despite her sisters planning a baby shower. In fact, last night I sent her a screenshot showing my credit card debt and my savings account to her. I told her I'm basically paycheck to paycheck now, because life has been a bit more expensive these past few months than expected. I've cut back on streaming services, eating out, and we used to eat out once a week for a date night. She said I'm overreacting, and she would sell some concert tickets that she had bought to get money back. She said that money comes and goes, and I should live in the moment. I told her I'm more worried about making sure that we have a home to live in, and her suggestion was that we could just sell and downsize. What should I do? Your wife is being irrational. Seriously? She wants you to sell and downsize your home situation just so she can go to Mexico to visit her godkids? Like, seriously, what is wrong with her? This is so inappropriate and so disrespectful of all the times you step up and literally pay for everything. Like, she clearly just doesn't understand that you don't have all this money waiting around. And she's even seen your bank account and screenshots of your credit card debt. Like, come on, she can't be that dense, right? She is not thinking like a future mom. That baby is gonna hit her like a hurricane if she keeps spending money this way. Like, babies are super expensive. This is not gonna be a simple thing. So hopefully she can find some kind of reason out of what you're saying, because you're literally living paycheck to paycheck. And the way she's acting right now is incredibly selfish. An entitled customer demands service after hours at a gas station I work at. And after insulting me, I come back with the funniest retort I possibly could think of. And I'm honestly so proud of how it went down. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this just happened last night. I currently work the night shift at a gas station and convenience store in the United States. Thankfully, this one isn't open 24/7, and it's open from 5:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. By the time 11 o'clock rolls around, I was just finished up with the last few remaining customers. As the last customer is walking out the door, I head to the front to close up for the night. Before I could do so, in walks a middle-aged man asking if he can buy some cigarettes. I should note that this same guy was in here earlier, buying a lighter about 5 minutes before we closed. He seemed a tiny bit abrasive when picking out which lighter he wanted, but I just chalked it up as him having a bad day or something like that and wanting to have a smoke but finding himself with no lighter. After he walks in asking if he can buy a pack of smokes, I told him that we're closed for tonight, but he's insisting, saying to me, "Come on, it'll be real quick." Now keep in mind, if he had come in even a minute before closing time, I still would have likely helped him out. However, it was already 10 minutes after closing. I've got a store to clean for the next morning, and I was already pushing it, serving the last few customers past 11 o'clock. Any more time after that, and I would get in a lot of trouble with management. I again tell him that we're closed, and as I'm just about to apologize for the inconvenience, he gets this really upset look on his face and says, "Oh, you're just a little jerk then, aren't ya?" It was honestly too perfect. I was waiting for the right opportunity to burst out this retort. With my best matter-of-fact tone of voice, I said, "Yep, I'm a really big jerk. You're not getting your cigarettes though. After that, he walked out saying something else, but I couldn't hear him over me saying, "Have a good night," and I promptly locked the doors right behind him. And I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely smiling to myself at the end of the night. When I worked in customer service, I literally could not stand when people came in at the last second. Like seriously, you had all day to get here. I understand people have work, I understand that people have a lot going on in their lives, but you couldn't have gotten here just a little bit quicker? Like seriously, you're coming in right now? And it doesn't help that the guy in the story literally came in earlier to buy a lighter. Like, what did you buy the lighter for, sir? Did you buy it just to look at it? You made a big fuss over which one you were getting. It honestly feels really silly. And the original poster has it right. They probably would get in a lot of trouble if they did decide to keep this customer there and try and help them out. Because knowing my luck at least, someone else would probably walk through the door and hold me up even longer. Like, I'm not trying to get in trouble for taking overtime, people. You gotta go. So good for the original poster for putting this weird guy in his place. He clearly had a really bad attitude, and that bad attitude will never get him anywhere. An entitled man proposes to his girlfriend at my stepbrother's wedding, shocking literally everybody involved and ruining the moment for my stepbrother and his wife. Things got so bad that the friend and his new fiance ended up getting kicked out of the wedding after they freaked out and started screaming at everyone. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, my mom and dad split up when I was 12 years old, and I for one was happy that they were separated. They were not bad people, they just were not the right people for each other. My father still hasn't been remarried though, and he is dating someone right now. I don't really like her, but it's really my dad's decision. My mom started dating a year after the divorce. She met my now stepfather, and he had a son who I became quite close to, considering my biological brother went to live with my dad while I lived with my mom. So when my mom announced her wedding, we were all excited. So then my stepfather's son officially became my stepbrother. So my stepbrother and his girlfriend of 3 years were getting married. Now his girlfriend just so happened to be my best friend, so I was extremely excited for them. I was chosen to be the maid of honor, and my biological brother was the best man. We were all that close, and we were all really excited. Now my stepbrother's best friend was one of the groomsmen at the wedding, and I really did not like this guy because he was a total creep and always tried to hit on me when my stepbrother wasn't around. My stepbrother is quite protective, so I didn't tell him because otherwise he would have been arrested for hitting this guy. And also, I can stand up for myself, so I don't really need his help. Anyways, once this guy got a girlfriend, he stopped annoying me, and it was really nice. So during the planning of the wedding, nothing crazy happened apart from the normal wedding stress. We invited almost everyone we knew, and it was going to be great. Well, or so we thought. The big day arrives, and everyone is ecstatic. The ceremony was beautiful, and everything went great. Then the reception came around, and it was going great at first. The groom and bride, plus the bridesmaids and the groomsmen, were all seated at the table in front of everyone at the venue, while the guests were sitting in front of us. So everyone was facing our table. Everyone was giving speeches and enjoying the food. Then, out of nowhere, the best friend from earlier who would always hit on me, he stood up and takes the mic and says he has something important to say. Now, we are all confused as he had finished his speech, but we decided to let him talk. But I honestly wish we hadn't, as this guy did something that none of us expected. He asked his girlfriend to come up to the table, and I already knew where this was going. He starts a speech on how much he loves her and how they're meant to be together. She's smiling, but I think she didn't want this to happen now of all times. He then kneels down and pulls a ring out of his pocket and asks her to marry him. She says yes, and they start running around showing people the ring, all while my best friend looked like she was going to cry. Finally, my mom gets up to remind everyone that this was her son's wedding and that we should stop talking about someone else's engagement. At that point, everyone was quiet. Suddenly, we hear this banshee scream. The girlfriend to my stepbrother's best friend started screaming, claiming that she had just ruined her special day by making that announcement. Then this jerk started screaming at us as well, claiming that he did nothing wrong. Eventually, and thankfully, they got kicked out. And my stepbrother lost his best friend that day, but he didn't really care because that idiot lost all of his friends as well. But it honestly blew all of our minds, and we seriously couldn't believe that they would do something that stupid at another person's wedding. The original poster actually has an update to what happens after this wedding fiasco, and apparently things get a lot worse afterwards. Here's what they had to say. So I posted about the events that occurred at my stepbrother's wedding, and a few people asked me to update it so that people could know what happened. So a few months after the wedding, my stepbrother announced that they are expecting a baby. Everyone was super excited and congratulated them. A bunch of friends came by our house and started thinking of baby names too. In fact, my biological brother invited his friend over as well. It was basically an early baby shower. All was going really well. That is until one of my stepbrother's friends posted this news on Facebook or something like that, basically just declaring the new baby was going to be born 9 months from now. And since this was posted online, it didn't take long for my stepbrother's former friend who proposed at his wedding to find out about this news. After some time, we heard the bell ring, so like any natural human being, my boyfriend went to open the door. As soon as he opened the door, my stepbrother's former friend pushed him and came barging in. When the jerk friend saw my stepbrother, he began screaming about how my stepbrother was a selfish jerk, and that now that his wife, who's my best friend, was expecting a baby, no one would come to his wedding. My stepbrother seemed surprisingly calm and told him to stop screaming and get out of the house. This seemed to offend this jerk friend even more, and what he said absolutely enraged me. He said to my stepbrother, "I can't believe you've become like this after she came around. You've changed." Now, you might not pick up on this, but this guy was making a racial comment against me. As a note, I'm not white, but I am brown, as my biological father is an Indian, so that makes me a mix. This jerk friend has always found this disgusting, but he's still always tried to hit on me. This horrible and messed up behavior is the exact reason why I never tried to be friends with him. And when he pointed at me earlier, that's basically what he was implying, that I was the problem and that it was because of my skin color. My biological brother and stepbrother looked enraged. They are very protective of me since I'm the only sister they have. I'm not the youngest, as my biological brother's the youngest, but in their eyes, they're still my sister. My biological brother walks up to this jerk and says to him, "You do not have the right to come into my house and then make comments about the skin color of my sister. Leave now before I mess you up." This guy tries to scream again, but this time my stepbrother and his friends tell him to leave. I think the thought of him being beaten up by 10 guys who were way bigger than him scared him more than anything. He ran out into his car and then eventually drove off. Occasionally nowadays, ever since lockdown, we get angry text messages from him, and it's honestly so pointless to deal with this guy in the slightest. I have since blocked him ever since going back and forth, but he still sends these angry, crazy text messages to my mom and stepfather, as well as many of my ex-friends. So all in all, this guy is crazy, and I'm glad that he is out of my life. That guy really does sound crazy. First off, in what universe did this guy seriously think it was okay to suddenly just propose at their best friend's wedding? Like, are you trying to make enemies with people? Like, you cannot do that. The wedding is meant for the people getting married. It's not meant for you or anybody else to try and announce anything. I mean, seriously, that is honestly messed up. Can you imagine getting married and then someone else is like, "Guys, we're getting married as well. Let me steal your thunder real quick." Like, no, get out of here. Do that on your own time. My wedding is not the time for you to announce your wedding. The timing is just horrible. I mean, what were they thinking? And then when you look at the backlash of what happened after they basically started acting crazy, I mean, no wonder nobody wanted to be friends with them. Like, look at the way this jerk of a friend reacted when they found out that their former friend's wife was pregnant. They tried to claim that them having a baby is going to prevent other people from going to their stupid wedding. Like, what are you talking about? Those things don't correlate at all. So good for you for cutting this person out of your life. They are clearly a horrible person, and you and your family are going to be so much better off without this guy being involved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal after I said it was my treat? Here's what happened. So I don't see my sister or her family very often, so when I do, I tend to splurge on them. I am child-free for now and for the foreseeable future, but probably not forever. I took her family out for dinner, and I said that it was my treat. So it was my sister, her husband, his mom who lives with them, myself, and 3 kids, ages 15, 12, and 10 years old. I took them out to a steak place in their city that I always wanted to try. My 15-year-old nephew looks at the menu and says that he wants the tomahawk steak. I told him it was 3 pounds of meat plus 3 full sides, and he should probably pick something smaller. My brother-in-law says that his kid can eat it all and said it was my treat and that I'm trying to cheap him out. Also, mind you, it was $190 for the steak. I said fine, but if he doesn't eat it all, then you have to pay for it, which he agreed to. We ordered our food, and the waiter tells us the tomahawk is usually shared between several people since it comes with 3 shareable portions of sides as well. I asked my brother-in-law if he was sure. He looks at the kid and smiles and says, "No problem." We order, and when the food came out, the tomahawk and the sides literally took up half the table. The kid finished less than a quarter of the steak and only a little bit of the sides. When the bill came, I asked to pay for 7 meals, all the drinks, and all the tips. I also said the tomahawk steak was going to be on a separate bill for my brother. brother-in-law. He agreed with ill grace. My sister said that he used the budget that they had earmarked to take the kids to see the new Spider-Man movie. I felt bad, but I think that he was an absolute jerk for trying to waste my money. He thinks that I'm a jerk for following through and making him pay for something that mostly went to waste. And yes, they took the leftovers home. So am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal? I don't think you're the jerk at all. That steak cost $190. I'm not sure what kind of restaurant you went to, but $190 for a steak? That is insane to me. That steak better be covered in gold if it's gonna cost that much. And no, there's no way I would want to pay for that. That kid's not gonna finish it. He's 15 years old. He's gonna take a few bites and then have all this other food left over. I would absolutely make the brother-in-law pay for that. There's no way that's coming out of my pocket. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your brother-in-law absolutely is for trying to make you pay for something that his son never even finished. Am I the jerk for yelling at my mother after she showed favorites towards my younger brothers and forces me to clean up after them and do everything for them? Here's what happened. I have two brothers, and for the sake of this post, I'll call them John and Terry. John and Terry are not their real names. My mom has always had a stronger liking towards both John and Terry. Ever since they were little, they could do no harm in her eyes. Since I was little, I would always get in trouble for everything John and Terry did. If they hurt each other, it was my fault. If they did something wrong, it was my fault as well. My mom always raised me as a caregiver. I had to basically take care of my little brothers, as I was the one cooking, cleaning, washing, and ironing their clothes, buying them stuff if they needed it, as well as helping them with their homework and many other things. However, due to me always doing everything for them, they have become the most useless human beings on the entire planet. They're almost adults now, and they still won't do their own laundry, they won't help with the cooking, they won't clean anything that they made a mess, and are just overall grubs, leaving their dirty tissues and clothes everywhere. Last night for me was the last straw when John spilt an entire bottle of orange juice on the floor, and my mom told me to clean it up. I immediately started yelling at her, saying she failed as a parent, and instead of raising her sons to pull their own weight in this house and teaching them basic life skills, she let everyone else do it for them and never taught them a thing. She instantly started laughing at me and said I was insane to think that's how life really was, and that she raised all of us equally. I then told her that I can't wait till she grows old and will end up relying on both of them because I won't be around to help her out with anything, and then she can see just how well she raised them. She told me that won't be happening because she doesn't want them taking care of her when she's older. I then stormed off to my room and cried for a good 10 minutes before packing a bag and driving to my boyfriend's house. When I told him what happened, he said he understands why I feel the way that I do, but that was quite harsh towards my mom, and I should apologize for lashing out at her like that. My friend also says that I'm the jerk and that I shouldn't speak to my mom like that. My mom has since left 2 voicemails demanding I come back home right now. I'm not going home until I've calmed down and when she's not as angry. So am I the jerk for talking to my mom this way, as well as being frustrated with my 2 younger brothers? So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom has clearly been playing favorites towards John and Terry, and it's obvious that she makes you do all this stuff when they could easily do it themselves. For context, John is 18 and Terry is 16, and the original poster of this story, she is literally 22 years old. Like, why is your mom making you clean up after your brothers when your brothers are literally almost adults, if not adults right now? Like, you should not be forced to clean up the orange juice that they spill on the ground, and they should absolutely be able to pull their weight by this point. And you want to know why your mom is making you come back to your house like that? It's because she has to now take care of her sons instead of trying to force you to do it. So I really do think there's some truth to what you're talking about, and you can bet her life is going to be a nightmare when you decide to step away and finally move out. And you know what? Your boyfriend just doesn't understand where you're coming from. I think at a base level, maybe like skin surface, he gets it, but honestly, he hasn't lived through this like you have. He didn't grow up feeling like he's in the backseat of this family, as well as everybody else's personal servant. You, on the other hand, absolutely had to deal with that. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. So honestly, your mom needs to straighten up and start to raise her boys right. Because from the way I see it, she has enabled these kids to be absolutely useless, and that is not your fault in the slightest. I am finally coming to terms with the fact that my mother is definitely a narcissist, and she has been my entire life. Here's what happened. When I was in college and in my early 20s, I, like many others, grew and evolved into a different person than my parents. When I graduated college, I moved out of state. I would miss my parents a lot, but when they would come to visit me every once in a while, I would become so irritable and difficult with them. When they left, I'd feel so guilty about my attitude while they were with me. I couldn't understand it. Now that I'm older and wiser and have started therapy, Honestly, I've had an epiphany. My mother is a narcissist. When I became an adult, she found it hard to respect me as an adult, and that's why I became so irritable every time she'd come to visit. My parents are very religious. They raised me to believe that we were better than everyone else because we had found the one true religion, and anyone who wasn't as devout as us was immature and not someone to waste my time with. As I got older, I became friends with people who grew up very differently than me. When my parents would come to visit, my mom would dismiss these friends or treat them very poorly. Now, I can see that she is very hypercritical of anyone who lives differently than her or holds a different opinion than her. My mom is also very entitled. It is either my mom's way or the highway. Having a baby, gotta have the shower that she wants. Want to have Christmas? Everyone is going to her church and doing the activities that she wants. And don't even think about visiting your in-laws for the holidays. She always gets first dibs. Giving birth? She will cry and beg the nurses to let her in the room, even though you told her you only wanted your spouse in the room, and after the fact, she'll tell you how selfish you are for blocking her from meeting her grandchild the moment he or she entered the world, which, by the way, is a true story. She lacks empathy, and especially to the above, it doesn't matter if you're tired, you've been working all day, you are going through a hard time, she doesn't want to hear any of it. You better show up where she wants and when she wants, and you better have a smile on your face with no complaints. Don't expect her to put herself in the shoes of others. She can only relate to things she's personally been through herself. Also, my mom is definitely going to make condescending remarks, and if you want to keep the peace, you best learn how to accept them and move on. Are you a little bit overweight? Did you not have time to do your hair? Trust me, she's gonna let you know. Ordering something at the restaurant that she thinks sounds gross? She will say so in front of the server. Setting a boundary of some kind? Well, she's gonna lash out with insults and attack your character. I've also noticed you can't expect her to be able to have an adult conversation or accept any kind of boundaries. The moment you try to have a conversation about anything real, she will tell you that it's no big deal and that I'm such a drama queen. And the list honestly goes on. From her never asking you one question about your life when you're together or speaking on the phone, but will then tell you every minute detail about hers and will expect you to remember it all. She will also both berate you behind closed doors, but then brag about you in Publix about your achievements on Facebook. She's only ever concerned about her appearance or her photo ops when you're together with her, and she's unconcerned with any real connection or making any memories. She'll treat you like a child even though you are a full-blown adult with a career, as well as a house, bills, taxes, and a child. I'm just so tired of feeling beaten down by this. I'm finally putting two and two together about my mom, and it has me feeling so discouraged and helpless. And now I'm not sure what to do. First off, I want to say I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that growing up. Your mom sounds awful and she treated you like garbage for your entire life. And what you've described literally sounds like a narcissist. She hits all the markings of a horrible parent as well as a horrible person. And I think you really need to understand that none of that is your fault. You've clearly moved on with your life and you have a kid and a family of your own. And that lady has no sway over what you can or cannot do with your life. And in my opinion, that's a great epiphany to have, to recognize how awful your mother is, as well as making the decision to not be like her ever in your life. So hopefully you're able to move past this, because your mom sounds awful, but you, on the other hand, sound like you've got a good head on your shoulders, and hopefully one day you're able to find peace with the situation. My partner invited another man to my mom's birthday without asking me, and now this has caused a huge fight between the two of us, and I'm now not sure if our relationship is over or not. Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old male and my partner is 21, and we are usually on the same page in terms of morality and often read stories online, bouncing our shared views on what's right and what's wrong. However, what she did recently has my head spinning at how spectacularly disrespectful and inconsiderate what she did was. We were out for my mom's birthday drinking at a nice pub on the outskirts of town. Things were going well. Then, out of nowhere, my girlfriend starts waving at some guy. He walks over and helps himself to a seat at the table. It was particularly busy that day and was hard enough to fit everyone at the table. And now, here's this random dude I don't know sitting in my uncle's seat. My girlfriend explained she knew him from work and was playing it off like it was happenstance that he was here at the same time as us. So I asked if he was just here on his own, and she said, no, I invited him here. I then asked if she thought it was appropriate to do that, and she defended herself by saying she felt left out and that I wasn't much company. Granted, I was a little bit hungover as I had been drinking with her the night before, so I might not have been the most present person in general, but she wasn't left out. I didn't leave her side once, and I tried to slowly integrate us into different conversations. So I asked her again, don't you think this is a little disrespectful to invite another another man along to entertain you just because you're bored and without running it by me or my mom first? She didn't have anything to say, and I wasn't willing to listen at that point even if she did. Most of us had moved on to the next pub, so I left her there and went to join my family. Eventually, she showed up alone, and I assumed the other guy felt awkward and just left. I pulled her aside to a quiet corner, and I told her I didn't want her here and to call that guy and see if he's still around, since that's who she'd rather spend her time with. And then I went back to where my family was sitting. And I did that thinking it was all over now. But oh boy, I was wrong. She decided she hadn't quite finished making my mom's birthday all about her. She came back and planted herself in the middle of everyone and caused a scene, demanding we sort this out right now. I said I needed space and just wanted to enjoy the rest of the day with my family, but she simply couldn't drop it. So I apologized to my mother and I left. Shortly after, my girlfriend followed me home, continuing to ignore my request that I wanted to be left alone, and screamed at me for not hearing her side of things. I said to her, there is no your side. Why should I respect your point of view after the complete lack of respect or consideration that you've shown me and my family and are still refusing to show me, seeing as I asked to be left alone? Eventually, she got her things and left, and we have not spoken since. I don't know where to go from here. We were talking about moving in together, but now I don't know if I want to, or if that even is going to happen. What should I do? Honestly, I might be on the fringe here, but I think both of you need to apologize to each other. For starters, you really did embarrass her in front of all of your family. You pulled her aside and singled her out and said, wow, why don't you go be with this guy you brought along instead of being with me? Like, you could have done that privately, but it sounds like you really did that in front of everybody, and that was incredibly disrespectful. But that also doesn't excuse what she did next. She literally sat in front of everybody and said, okay, we need to sort this out. Chances are nobody else really cared that she brought another guy from work with her to this party, but it's the fact that she did that in front of everybody and then dragged everybody in your family into her drama really was disrespectful. I personally feel like you also really should have listened to her side of things and tried to hear her out in some kind of way. I'm not excusing the behavior, trust me when I say that. I think what she did is absolutely stupid, and she should have told you ahead of time that she was bringing a friend from work, but her reaction overall to things was incredibly disrespectful, and I don't think the original poster is off the hook either. Overall though, I think your girlfriend is the bigger jerk in this situation, and while I think you could have handled this a little bit better overall, her reaction and the fact that she did this far outweighs anything that you did. An entitled man proposes to his girlfriend at my stepbrother's wedding, shocking literally everybody involved and ruining the moment for my stepbrother and his wife. Things got so bad that the friend and his new fiance ended up getting kicked out of the wedding after they freaked out and started screaming at everyone. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, my mom and dad split up when I was 12 years old, and I for one was happy that they were separated. They were not bad people, they just were not the right people for each other. My father still hasn't been remarried though, and he is dating someone right now. I don't really like her, but it's really my dad's decision. My mom started dating a year after the divorce. She met my now stepfather, and he had a son who I became quite close to, considering my biological brother went to live with my dad while I lived with my mom. So when my mom announced her wedding, we were all excited. So then my stepfather's son officially became my stepbrother. So my stepbrother and his girlfriend of 3 years were getting married. Now his girlfriend just so happened to be my best friend, so I was extremely excited for them. I was chosen to be the maid of honor, and my biological brother was the best man. We were all that close, and we were all really excited. Now my stepbrother's best friend was one of the groomsmen at the wedding, and I really did not like this guy because he was a total creep and always tried to hit on me when my stepbrother wasn't around. My stepbrother is quite protective, so I didn't tell him because otherwise he would have been arrested for hitting this guy. And also, I can stand up for myself, so I don't really need his help. Anyways, once this guy got a girlfriend, he stopped annoying me and it was really nice. So during the planning of the wedding, nothing crazy happened apart from the normal wedding stress. We invited almost everyone we knew and it was going to be great. Well, or so we thought. The big day arrives and everyone is ecstatic. The ceremony was beautiful and everything went great. Then the reception came around and it was going great at first. The groom and bride plus the bridesmaids and the groomsmen were all seated at the table in front of everyone at the venue while the guests were sitting in front of us. So everyone was facing our table. Everyone was giving speeches and enjoying the food. Then out of nowhere, the best friend from earlier who would always hit on me, he stood up and takes the mic and says he has something important to say. Now we are all confused as he had finished his speech, but we decided to let him talk. But I honestly wish we hadn't, as this guy did something that none of us expected. He asked his girlfriend to come up to the table, and I already knew where this was going. He starts a speech on how much he loves her and how they're meant to be together. She's smiling, but I think she didn't want this to happen now of all times. He then kneels down and pulls a ring out of his pocket and asks her to marry him. She says yes, and they start running around showing people the ring, all while my best friend looked like she was going to cry. Finally, my mom gets up to remind everyone that this was her son's wedding and that we should stop talking about someone else's engagement. At that point, everyone was quiet. Suddenly, we hear this banshee scream. The girlfriend to my stepbrother's best friend started screaming, claiming that she had just ruined her special day by making that announcement. Then this jerk started screaming at us as well, claiming that he did nothing wrong. Eventually, and thankfully, they got kicked out. And my stepbrother lost his best friend that day, but he didn't really care because that idiot lost all of his friends as well. But it honestly blew all of our minds, and we seriously couldn't believe that they would do something that stupid at another person's wedding. The original poster actually has an update to what happens after this wedding fiasco, and apparently things get a lot worse afterwards. Here's what they had to say. So I posted about the events that occurred at my stepbrother's wedding, and a few people asked me to update it so that people could know what happened. So a few months after the wedding, my stepbrother announced that they are expecting a baby. Everyone was super excited and congratulated them. A bunch of friends came by our house and started thinking of baby names too. In fact, my biological brother invited his friend over as well. It was basically an early baby shower. All was going really well. That is until one of my stepbrother's friends posted this news on Facebook or something like that, basically just declaring the new baby was going to be born 9 months from now. And since this was posted online, it didn't take long for my stepbrother's former friend who proposed at his wedding to find out about this news. After some time, we heard the bell ring, so like any natural human being, my boyfriend went to open the door. As soon as he opened the door, my stepbrother's former friend pushed him and came barging in. When the jerk friend saw my stepbrother, he began screaming about how my stepbrother was a selfish jerk, and that now that his wife, who's my best friend, was expecting a baby, no one would come to his wedding. My stepbrother seemed surprisingly calm and told him to stop screaming and get out of the house. This seemed to offend this jerk friend even more, and what he said absolutely enraged me. He said to my stepbrother, "I can't believe you become like this after she came around. You've changed." Now, you might not pick up on this, but this guy was making a racial comment against me. As a note, I'm not white, but I am brown, as my biological father is an Indian, so that makes me a mix. This jerk friend has always found this disgusting, but he's still always tried to hit on me. This horrible and messed up behavior is the exact reason why I never tried to be friends with him. And when he pointed at me earlier, that's basically what he was implying, that I was the problem and that it was because of my skin color. My biological brother and stepbrother looked enraged. They are very protective of me since I'm the only sister they have. I'm not the youngest, as my biological brother is the youngest, but in their eyes, they're still my sister. My biological brother walks up to this jerk and says to him, "You do not have the right to come into my house and then make comments about the skin color of my sister. Leave now before I mess you up." This guy tries to scream again, but this time my stepbrother and his friends tell him to leave. I think the thought of him being beaten up by 10 guys who were way bigger than him scared him more than anything. He ran out into his car and then eventually drove off. Occasionally nowadays, ever since lockdown, we get angry text messages from him, and it's honestly so pointless to deal with this guy in the slightest. I have since blocked him ever since going back and forth, but he still sends these angry, crazy text messages to my mom and stepfather, as well as many of my ex-friends. So all in all, this guy is crazy, and I'm glad that he is out of my life. That guy really does sound crazy. First off, in what universe did this guy seriously think it was okay to suddenly just propose at their best friend's wedding? Like, are you trying to make enemies with people? Like, you cannot do that. The wedding is meant for the people getting married. It's not meant for you or anybody else to try and announce anything. I mean, seriously, that is honestly messed up. Can you imagine getting married and then someone else is like, "Guys, we're getting married as well. Let me steal your thunder real quick." Like, no, get out of here. Do that on your own time. My wedding is not the time for you to announce your wedding. The timing is just horrible. I mean, what were they thinking? And then when you look at the backlash of what happened after they basically started acting crazy, I mean, no wonder nobody wanted to be friends with them. Like, look at the way this jerk of a friend reacted when they found out that their former friend's wife was pregnant. They tried to claim that them having a baby is going to prevent other people from going to their stupid wedding. Like, what are you talking about? Those things don't correlate at all. So good for you for cutting this person out of your life. They are clearly a horrible person, and you and your family are going to be so much better off without this guy being involved. If you like like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal after I said it was my treat? Here's what happened. So I don't see my sister or her family very often, so when I do, I tend to splurge on them. I am child-free for now and for the foreseeable future, but probably not forever. I took her family out for dinner and I said that it was my treat. So it was my sister, her husband, his mom who lives with them, myself, and 3 kids, ages 15, 12, and 10 years old. I took them out to a steak place in their city that I always wanted to try. My 15-year-old nephew looks at the menu and says that he wants the tomahawk steak. I told him it was 3 pounds of meat plus 3 full sides, and he should probably pick something smaller. My brother-in-law says that his kid can eat it all and said it was my treat and that I'm trying to cheap him out. Also, mind you, it was $190 for the steak. I said fine, but if he doesn't eat it all, then you have to pay for it, which he agreed to. We ordered our food and the waiter tells us the tomahawk is usually shared between several people since it comes with 3 shareable portions of sides as well. I asked my brother-in-law if he was sure. He looks at the kid and smiles and says, no problem. We order, and when the food came out, the tomahawk and the sides literally took up half the table. The kid finished less than a quarter of the steak and only a little bit of the sides. When the bill came, I asked to pay for 7 meals, all the drinks, and all the tips. I also said the tomahawk steak was going to be on a separate bill for my brother-in-law. He agreed with ill grace. My sister said that he used the budget that they had earmarked to take the kids to see the new Spider-Man movie. I felt bad, but I think that he was an absolute jerk for trying to waste my money. He thinks that I'm a jerk for following through and making him pay for something that mostly went to waste. And yes, they took the leftovers home. So am I the jerk for making my brother-in-law pay for his son's meal? I don't think you're the jerk at all. That steak cost $190. I'm not sure what kind of restaurant you went to, but $190 for a steak? That is insane to me. That steak better be covered in gold if it's going to cost that much. And no, there's no way I would want to pay for that. That kid's not going to finish it. He's 15 years old. He's going to take a few bites and then have all this other food left over. I would absolutely make the brother-in-law pay for that. There's no way that's coming out of my pocket. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your brother-in-law absolutely is for trying to make you pay for something that his son never even finished. Am I the jerk for yelling at my mother after she showed favorites towards my younger brothers and forces me to clean up after them and do everything for them? Here's what happened. I have 2 brothers, and for the sake of this post, I'll call them John and Terry. John and Terry are not their real names. My mom has always had a stronger liking towards both John and Terry. Ever since they were little, they could do no harm in her eyes. Since I was little, I would always get in trouble for everything John and Terry did. If they hurt each other, it was my fault. If they did something wrong, it was my fault as well. My mom always raised me as a caregiver. I had to basically take care of my little brothers, as I was the one cooking, cleaning, washing, and ironing their clothes, buying them stuff if they needed it, as well as helping them with their homework and many other things. However, due to me always doing everything for them, they have become the most useless human beings on the entire planet. They're almost adults now, and they still won't do their own laundry, they won't help with the cooking, they won't clean anything that they made a mess, and are just overall grubs, leaving their dirty tissues and clothes everywhere. Last night for me was the last straw when John spilt an entire bottle of orange juice on the floor, and my mom told me to clean it up. I immediately started yelling at her, saying she failed as a parent, and instead of raising her sons to pull their own weight in this house and teaching them basic life skills, she let everyone else do it for them and never taught them a thing. She instantly started laughing at me and said I was insane to think that's how life really was, and that she raised all of us equally. I then told her that I can't wait till she grows old and will end up relying on both of them because I won't be around to help her out with anything, and then she can see just how well she raised them. She told me that won't be happening because she doesn't want them taking care of her when she's older. I then stormed off to my room and cried for a good 10 minutes before packing a bag and driving to my boyfriend's house. When I told him what happened, he said he understands why I feel the way that I do, but that was quite harsh towards my mom, and I should apologize for lashing out at her like that. My friend also says that I'm the jerk and that I shouldn't speak to my mom like that. My mom has since left 2 voicemails demanding I come back home right now. I'm not going home until I've calmed down and when she's not as angry. So am I the jerk for talking to my mom this way, as well as being frustrated with my 2 younger brothers? So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom has clearly been playing favorites towards John and Terry, and it's obvious that she makes you do all this stuff when they could easily do it themselves. For context, John is 18 and Terry is 16, and the original post poster of this story, she is literally 22 years old. Like, why is your mom making you clean up after your brothers when your brothers are literally almost adults, if not adults right now? Like, you should not be forced to clean up the orange juice that they spill on the ground, and they should absolutely be able to pull their weight by this point. And you want to know why your mom is making you come back to your house like that? It's because she has to now take care of her sons instead of trying to force you to do it. So I really do think there's some truth to what you're talking about, and you can bet her life is going to be a nightmare when you decide to step away and finally move out. And you know what? Your boyfriend just doesn't understand where you're coming from. I think at a base level, maybe like skin surface, he gets it, but honestly, he hasn't lived through this like you have. He didn't grow up feeling like he's in the backseat of this family as well as everybody else's personal servant. You, on the other hand, absolutely had to deal with that. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. So honestly, your mom needs to straighten up and start to raise her boys right. Because from the way I see it, she has enabled these kids to be absolutely useless, and that is not your fault in the slightest. I am finally coming to terms with the fact that my mother is definitely a narcissist, and she has been my entire life. Here's what happened. When I was in college and in my early 20s, I, like many others, grew and evolved into a different person than my parents. When I graduated college, I moved out of state. I would miss my parents a lot, but when they would come to visit me every once in a while, I would become so irritable and difficult with them. When they left, I'd feel so guilty about my attitude while they were with me. I couldn't understand it. Now that I'm older and wiser and have started therapy, I've had an epiphany. My mother is a narcissist. When I became an adult, she found it hard to respect me as an adult, and that's why I became so irritable every time she'd come to visit. My parents are very religious. They raised me to believe that we were better than everyone else because we had found the one true religion, and anyone who wasn't as devout as us was immature and not someone to waste my time with. As I got older, I became friends with people who grew up very differently than me. When my parents would come to visit, my mom would dismiss these friends or treat them very poorly. Now, I can see that she is very hypercritical of anyone who lives differently than her or holds a different opinion than her. My mom is also very entitled. It is either my mom's way or the highway. Having a baby, gotta have the shower that she wants. Want to have Christmas? Everyone is going to her church and doing the activities that she wants. And don't even think about visiting your in-laws for the holidays. She always gets first dibs. Giving birth? She will cry and beg the nurses to let her in the room, even though you told her you only wanted your spouse in the room, and after the fact, she'll tell you how selfish you are for blocking her from meeting her grandchild the moment he or she entered the world, which, by the way, is a true story. She lacks empathy, and especially to the above, it doesn't matter if you're tired, you've been working all day, you are going through a hard time, she doesn't want to hear any of it. You better show up where she wants and when she wants, and you better have a smile on your face with no complaints. Don't expect her to put herself in the shoes of others. She can only relate to things she's personally been through herself. Also, my mom is definitely going to make condescending remarks, and if you want to keep the peace, you best learn how to accept them and move on. Are you a little bit overweight? Did you not have time to do your hair? Trust me, she's gonna let you know. Ordering something at the restaurant that she thinks sounds gross? She will say so in front of the server. Setting a boundary of some kind? Well, she's gonna lash out with insults and attack your character. I've also noticed you can't expect her to be able to have an adult conversation or accept any kind of boundaries. The moment you try to have a conversation about anything real, she will tell you that it's no big deal and that I'm such a drama queen. And the list honestly goes on. From her never asking you one question about your life when you're together or speaking on the phone, but will then tell you every minute detail about hers and will expect you to remember it all. She will also both berate you behind closed doors, but then brag about you in Publix about your achievements on Facebook. She's only ever concerned about her appearance or her photo ops when you're together with her, and she's unconcerned with any real connection or making any memories. She'll treat you like a child even though you are a full-blown adult with a career, as well as a house, bills, taxes, and a child. I'm just so tired of feeling beaten down by this. I'm finally putting two and two together about my mom, and it has me feeling so discouraged and helpless. And now I'm not sure what to do. First off, I want to say I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that growing up. Your mom sounds awful, and she treated you like garbage for your entire life. And what you've described literally sounds like a narcissist. She hits all the markings of a horrible parent, as well as a horrible person. And I think you really need to understand that none of that is your fault. You've clearly moved on with your life, and you have a kid and a family of your own. And that lady has no sway over what you can or cannot do with your life. And in my opinion, that's a great epiphany to have, to recognize how awful your mother is, as well as making the decision to not be like her ever in your life. So hopefully you're able to move past this, because your mom sounds awful, but you, on the other hand, sound like you've got a good good head on your shoulders, and hopefully one day you're able to find peace with the situation. My partner invited another man to my mom's birthday without asking me, and now this has caused a huge fight between the two of us, and I'm now not sure if our relationship is over or not. Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old male and my partner is 21, and we are usually on the same page in terms of morality and often read stories online, bouncing our shared views on what's right and what's wrong. However, what she did recently has my head spinning and how spectacularly disrespectful and inconsiderate what she did was. We were out for my mom's birthday drinking at a nice pub on the outskirts of town. Things were going well. Then out of nowhere, my girlfriend starts waving at some guy. He walks over and helps himself to a seat at the table. It was particularly busy that day and was hard enough to fit everyone at the table. And now here's this random dude I don't know sitting in my uncle's seat. My girlfriend explained she knew him from work and was playing it off like it was happenstance that he was here at the same time as us. So I asked if he was just here on his own, and she said, "No, I invited him here." I then asked if she thought it was appropriate to do that, and she defended herself by saying she felt left out and that I wasn't much company. Granted, I was a little bit hungover as I had been drinking with her the night before, so I might not have been the most present person in general, but she wasn't left out. I didn't leave her side once, and I tried to slowly integrate us into different conversations. So I asked her again, "Don't you think this is a little disrespectful to invite another man along to entertain you just because you're bored and without running it by me or my mom first?" She didn't have anything to say, and I wasn't willing to listen at that point even if she did. Most of us had moved on to the next pub, so I left her there and went to join my family. Eventually, she showed up alone, and I assumed the other guy felt awkward and just left. I pulled her aside to a quiet corner, and I told her I didn't want her here and to call that guy and see if he's still around, since that's who she'd rather spend her time with. And then I went back to where my family was sitting, and I did that thinking it was all over now. But oh boy, I was wrong. She decided she hadn't quite finished making my mom's birthday all about her. She came back and planted herself in the middle of everyone and caused a scene, demanding we sort this out right now. I said I needed space and just wanted to enjoy the rest of the day with my family, but she simply couldn't drop it. So I apologized to my mother and I left. Shortly after, my girlfriend followed me home, continuing to ignore my request that I wanted to be left alone, and screamed at me for not hearing her side of things. I said to her, "There is no your side. Why should I respect your point of view after the complete lack of respect or consideration that you've shown me and my family and are still refusing to show me, seeing as I asked to be left alone?" Eventually, she got her things and left, and we have not spoken since. I don't know where to go from here. We were talking about moving in together, but now I don't know if I want to, or if that even is going to happen. What should I do? Honestly, I might be on the fringe here, but I think both of you need to apologize to each other. For starters, you really did embarrass her in front of all of your family. You pulled her aside and singled her out and said, "Wow, why don't you go be with this guy you brought along instead of being with me?" Like, you could have done that privately, but it sounds like you really did that in front of everybody, and that was incredibly disrespectful. But that also doesn't excuse what she did next. She literally sat in front of everybody and said, "Okay, we need to sort this out." Chances are nobody else really cared that she brought another guy from work with her to this party, but it's the fact that she did that in front of everybody and then dragged everybody in your family into her drama really was disrespectful. I personally feel like you also really should have listened to her side of things and tried to hear her out in some kind of way. I'm not excusing the behavior, trust me when I say that. I think what she did is absolutely stupid, and she should have told you ahead of time that she was bringing a friend from work, but her reaction overall to things was incredibly disrespectful, and I don't think the original poster is off the hook either. Overall though, I think your girlfriend is the bigger jerk in this situation, and while I think you could have handled this a little bit better overall, her reaction and the fact that she did this far outweighs anything that you did. My entitled manager fires me before I'm able to quit, so I uncover all of her dirty secrets as revenge, and as a result, her entire life is falling apart, forcing her to get fired, causing her husband to divorce her, while also making it so she was living out of her car for quite some time. And I've never been more satisfied to see karma do its work. Here's what happened. Since I'm still in school, I took a job at a bakery of types, which I won't name. The place has bread in the name, but also sells overpriced salads and sandwiches. I think you can figure it out from there. I worked there for close to a year, where I had this boss by the name of Betty. Betty is not her real name. Betty and I just didn't get along whatsoever. She had gotten the previous general manager to quit because she had an affair with him, and she threatened to tell his wife if he didn't leave. He quickly left the job, and she was promoted to the position. I didn't like her, but I have to respect the dedication to be the general manager of a small store. When I first started working there, I was respectful, but she would do things that would get on my nerves. For instance, I would clean all the places I would be hired to do, and once I was done and relaxed, for maybe 5 minutes, she would run out of the manager's office and start screeching at me. She would say, "Why aren't you working?" I would tell her, of course, I just did my job, and as a cashier, if nobody is there to help, then I didn't have anything to do. She would glare at me and then would supposedly accidentally drop an entire pot of brewed coffee onto my freshly mopped floor just for me to then have to clean it up. So I learned quickly to always look busy. Once she realized I was going to kneel and kiss the ground that she walked on, she started dropping my hours. The store ran on Game of Thrones type politics for who got promoted and who got a raise. Somehow all of her friends were managers and would bully the rest of the staff. She was barely at work too, by the way. She would drive to my job, clock in just in case corporate decided to check on her hours. So basically, she was essentially stealing hours. When you clock in, it printed out a small piece of paper telling you when you clocked in. She would just drop them on the floor for me to clean up. I would usually pick them up and stick them into my pocket. So this led to me finding Betty clock in and clock out stubs in my pockets in my house. This will be important later. Did I also mention she was super racist? She was white, and most of the staff were my fellow high school peers who were mostly people of color. One day at work, she walked out and told us, "When you're on the clock, I own you." When we all reacted to look at her, she backpedaled and was like, "I didn't mean it like that." And this will also be important later, by the way. So after a while, I got sick of practically begging for hours, so I went to my current job, but decided I merely wanted to drop my hours, which were already barely a day a week. But suddenly when I got my new job, she scheduled me for every single day of an entire week. She never did that, even when we were on semi-good terms. So I obviously told her I had a new job and I couldn't do this. After that, I went home and called my friend who was still working there to tell him that I was going to quit tomorrow. Now he has a bad habit of putting his phone on speakerphone when he's cleaning at work. So Betty overheard this, obviously. The next day, I walk in and I go through the respectful motions of saying, "Thank you for the opportunity," and all this other stuff. Betty let me get through the entire speech before she said, "Oh yeah, I was meaning to tell you, you're fired." I was so blindsided and upset that I cussed her out. My mom raised me to treat women with respect, but this overweight, hippo-looking jerk absolutely enraged me. She's the type of girl to think binge eating was a personality trait. So I left and was mad about being fired before I quit, but didn't push the issue any further. I'm only 18 and I already had another job. I wasn't expecting Betty to give me a good reference anyways. I would have completely left it alone if it wasn't for the district manager by the name of Ben, who ended up texting me. Ben is not his real name. Now he thought I was still working there, so I explained to him that I was fired, and when he found out about this, he was stunned due to the fact that I was a decent employee. He asked why she let me go, and I explained it to him, and he was absolutely furious. And then he clarified that she fired me before I quit, and I said yes. He was so mad that she did this, and asked if there was anything else she might have done. I kind of just vented to him for a little bit, and when I told him about the racist remarks, he asked if anyone else would collaborate with me. I forgot to mention that she slowly fired and forced people to quit and replaced them with her friends and family, which, according to company policy, she could not do that. Something about conflict of interest or something like that. I asked all the people who were working that day if they could do this with me, and a few of them said that they would. But one of them did even better. My one coworker is convinced that he's the next big vlogger, so he always has his phone out or just uses audio recordings for hours for a chance to catch a funny clip that might have happened at work. I've watched his content and let me say it is just super cringe. But it turns out he labels each recording by the day and the times. So when he checked, he found her making racist remarks on his phone. I then got the brilliant idea with my other friend or coworkers who got fired, and we decided to scour my vlogging friends' recordings. We found some great moments of Betty saying controversial things or just straight up being nasty. Like one time, a guest sneezed on the baked pastries, and when a coworker told her, she laughed it off and said nobody would know. But this wasn't enough for me. I tried to avoid conflict, but when I'm in a situation, I'll follow it through. I looked her up on Facebook, and I found out that she was married. Nobody knew this. So when she had the affair with the other manager and basically blackmailed him, she was also married and basically cheating. I don't think anyone ever cared enough to find out, but she was a nasty old lady. So I found the old manager's Facebook page, and I found out he and his wife were separated. It turns out even after he quit, Betty was still trying to blackmail money out of him. And when he didn't, she told his wife anyways, causing his wife to divorce him and basically leave him, forcing him to go live with his parents. I did some research, and in my state, blackmail and extortion is a third-degree penalty, which has a maximum of 7 years in prison with a fine over $10,000 to the victim. So I told my old manager what my plan was for her. He agreed to call the cops on her, but I asked if he'd wait until I finished my part first. He said he'd give me a week. So I met with the district manager and showed him all of our evidence, the recordings and the written statements from the other ex-coworkers and people who were still working there. I also gave Ben the slips of paper as to when Betty would clock in and out, and how she would just leave for like 8 to 10 hours at a time and then come back to work. Ben thanked me for the information, and then I left. A few days later, while walking past the store, I noticed it was closed in the middle of the day. I texted a guy who still worked there, and he told me everything. It turns out, Ben first checked the security cameras to see if she was there for the full time she claimed to be. And surprise, surprise, she absolutely wasn't. So Ben decided to investigate the store's expenses, since if she's lying about her time, what else could she possibly be stealing? He found out she was stealing money from the store. Now, the guy didn't fully explain how she was doing this, but just says that it was happening. It turns out she was breaking a lot of health and safety codes and used the money for repairs and all this other stuff for herself specifically. So she was fired immediately along with all of her minions and left barely anybody to run the store. They shut down to clean up the store and fix things that she didn't make. So she's out of a job, and the guy she blackmailed told Betty's husband with photo proof that she cheated on him. So Betty's husband flips out and decides to divorce her. And you can bet that Betty is the type to post everything going on Facebook. So she's begging someone to let her stay, but all of her friends and family totally bailed on her. So she was living in her car looking for a job. And that's when the guy she blackmailed decided to sue her for extortion. So she scrambles to find a lawyer. And to make it even worse, the company decided to sue her for all the money she stole, plus all the repairs and lost revenue while the store is closed. Betty's life is absolute garbage. She had to sell her car for drastically under what it was worth just to pay for all the legal trouble. The guy she blackmailed told me in bits and pieces of her crying in the courtroom, but not too much after that. I was never super close to him, to be honest. The last I heard of Betty is that she is still living with her sister, who definitely hates her. And to think that she could have avoided all of this if she just let me quit instead of firing me before I could finish. Man, this Betty lady truly was corrupt. I mean, look at the way she was acting. She treated her employees like garbage. She was generally just an awful person. She blackmailed a guy that she had spent some quality time with, and she was stealing from the store and doing all these horrible things. Not to mention the gross health code violations. Like, seriously, you let someone sneeze on your products and give it out to people anyways? You are seriously a horrible person if you do that. I mean, I'm surprised that the original poster stuck around with that job as long as they did. This person just sounds absolutely awful. I can't imagine working in that kind of environment and trying to make ends meet in my life. So good for the original poster for doing what needs to get done and basically sabotaging this lady's life, because it sounds like she absolutely deserved it, and everything that came her way was of her own doing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My mom has been disinvited from my wedding after she continually asked me to take my stepfather in and allow him at my wedding, and now I'm seriously unsure of what to do. So to start things out, this is a throwaway account because my cousin knows my regular account. My fiance and I are getting married soon, and my mother has been getting more and more irritating by bringing up my stepfather, who is not invited. My biological father was verbally and physically awful to me, and when my mother left him when I was about 8 years old, she began dating and married my stepfather. My stepfather does seem to love my mother and vaguely like my brothers, but he absolutely hates me. He was often very verbally awful to me as well, and on more than one occasion, it became physical as well. He was never a positive figure in my life, and since moving out, I have never spoken to him and avoided visiting my mother due to him, and also because I basically resent her inaction. As such, he was not invited to our wedding, and my fiance and I have made it very clear to my mother that she is not allowed to bring him to the wedding or to any of our events. However, since receiving the invitation, she has not once refrained from mentioning him when we've spoken, and she's insisted upon talking to me more often than normal. Usually, she doesn't mention him unless there's some kind of major event happening, but now she will talk about him endlessly, and this is all between asking me how my wedding planning is going and all this other stuff. She has also asked asked over the phone if she could take him to the wedding on 3 separate occasions. And she has also asked if he could attend the rehearsal dinner on 2 separate occasions. 2 days ago, my fiance and I were invited to a family dinner just to celebrate my nephew's high school and my niece's kindergarten graduation. And this is where my mother and stepfather were present. Once the kids were sent to bed, the conversation turned towards our wedding. My mother decided to express to everyone that she was terribly upset that my stepfather was not invited. And given that he was quiet now, he should be invited because it is apparently not completely impossible for him to entirely shut up. I was not happy about her bringing this up in front of everyone, or at all for that matter. So I snapped at her. I told her that I had been clear that I did not want to hear it and I wasn't going to change my mind. And I told her that because she couldn't respect my wishes, she was no longer invited to my wedding. She immediately started crying and my stepfather started swearing at me. She then told me that I was cruel to not let her go because I'm her son and she's done all these things for me. I then told her that she didn't seem too concerned with all of that when my stepfather was denigrating me and telling me I wasn't worth anything as a person, all while I was still a child. But this didn't stop her from whining nonetheless. My fiance and I left after that. Aside from my fiance, who very clearly supports me and has been an absolute angel with this, every other family member has said that I was being a jerk. So should I apologize for the way I spoke to her in front of other people? Should I reinstate her invitation? How can I work through some of this animosity? What should I do? First and foremost, no, you are not the jerk, and no, you didn't do anything wrong. If your mom wants to make this public, well then guess what? We can make this argument public. You have told her on multiple occasions over the phone that no, he cannot be there. And now when you're right in front of a bunch of other people, your mom tried to pull a power play and publicly humiliate you to try and force you to get your stepfather in your wedding. And personally, I don't blame you for a second for putting her in her place and saying, no, that's not gonna happen. Your stepfather was awful to you growing up. He is clearly not a good person, and your mom is just as complicit in this issue since she did nothing to stop him when you were a child. You don't owe her or your stepfather a thing. And if she wants to step over your boundaries repeatedly and not take no for an answer, then this, in my opinion, might be the only way to get her to stop. Because in my opinion, if she is let back into the wedding, you can bet that she's gonna bring your stepfather with her and then try to guilt trip you at the wedding to let him in. Like, clearly she's willing to do this in public. You really think she wouldn't do this at your wedding? So in my opinion, I don't think you made a wrong decision. The rest of the family can go kick some sand. They don't know the extent that your mom has gone to just to try and make your stepfather a part of your wedding. And considering his past history, I don't blame you in the slightest for not wanting him involved. An entitled Karen tries to preach and proselytize to my child. And even after I corrected her and told her not to do that, she continued to try and test my patience. So I put her in her place in a spectacular fashion. Here's what happened. So my eldest is having a play date with a friend, and her mom comes to pick her up. I'm in my bedroom with Streetlight Manifesto playing, and my boyfriend is watching the kids. He comes to get me, saying Mommy Dearest wants to talk to me about my music, and rolls his eyes. So I go, and she immediately starts to say, you let your children listen to such blasphemy. But I tell her that it's not really blasphemy if we don't really believe in God to begin with. She then gets so outraged that we need to see the light. So I snap back at her and I say, leave my house immediately, or I will have my boyfriend assist you in finding your way to the exit. So I send her an email the next morning. Hi, this is the original poster from yesterday. I'm very concerned about your insistence on preaching to my children, and I do not appreciate you insulting me and my children, especially not in front of my child. I would very much like you to keep your religion to yourself and your family. If you find what you need in your God, that is wonderful for you. And I'm truly happy for you, but we do not share your beliefs and very much do not want you pushing your beliefs on us, and especially not our children who do not yet possess the critical faculties to understand such difficult concepts. As a courtesy, I will refrain from playing atheistic music while your child is over. I got a message back from this lady, and she said to me, I'm very sorry for my attitude the other day. My mother's currently in the hospital and I wasn't having a great day. I understand that you have a difference of beliefs, and I will respect that in the future. Thank you for coming to me instead of just attacking me. So I think that it's settled, and I let my daughter go to her play date despite my boyfriend wanting to chaperone. And honestly, I should have let him. When I pick up my child, we start driving home, and I ask what they did and if she had fun. And she says, we watched a movie about Jesus. Luckily, my child already knows about Christianity and that they have their beliefs, but we, meaning mommy and daddy, do not share those beliefs. And now I'm stuck trying to figure out how I'm going to answer all these questions that my 5-year-old is going to have. I was honestly hoping I could put this conversation off until she was a little bit older so she could understand where I was coming from. them. Because honestly, I don't have any real issues with Christians or Christianity that aren't based in their logical failings of their arguments for the existence of God. I became an atheist because I studied philosophy. So I send another email to this lady. I say to her, "Hi there, please explain to me why you thought it was appropriate after our last conversation to proselytize to my child." This lady then responded by saying, "I'm sorry, I figured you wouldn't mind giving you espouse the virtues of atheism in your home, that I at least provide a counter to your blasphemy. Children should be allowed to decide whichever path they wish on their own." I respond to this lady by saying, "Thank you so much for responding. I will no longer be letting my child over to your house unsupervised, and your child is no longer welcome over at ours unsupervised. I will be taking further action as necessary through the school. Any further correspondence can go through my boyfriend, as frankly, you don't want my patience to run any thinner than it already is. His contact information will be attached." And after that, we haven't heard back. And hopefully, I never do. Honestly, when it comes to other people's kids, you need to respect the parents' wishes. It doesn't matter what the subject is. And it also doesn't matter that the original poster is atheist. If they didn't want their kid being proselytized to, regardless of the religion, then guess what? You need to respect those wishes, even if you disagree with them. I'm personally of the camp that, you know what, people can believe or not believe whatever they want. And if they disagree with me, then that's fine. But the last thing I'm gonna do is try to push my own beliefs on someone else's kids, even if it is in some kind of covert way, like the way this other lady was doing it. She shared that movie and she knew exactly what she was doing. And that was highly inappropriate given the conversation that already happened previously. Like, talk about being incredibly disrespectful and so unbelievably rude. So good for the original poster for putting this lady in her place. She was completely out of line with your wishes, and I don't blame you for reacting in the way that you did. Am I the jerk for not telling my wife that I drove 5 hours to my sister's wedding with my ex also in the car? Here's what happened. So to start things out, my sister got married 1 month ago. My ex was at the wedding because she's my sister's best friend. My wife couldn't come because her mom was at the hospital and she wanted to be near if anything bad happened. I obviously asked her if she was okay with me going alone, and she said that she was. The wedding was a 5-hour drive and I didn't want to drive on my own for that long. So my sister suggested that I drive with my ex because in her case, she had no ride to the wedding. So I agreed, but I didn't tell my wife because I knew she was already stressed about her mom and I didn't want to add on to that. However, my mom accidentally let the information slip in a conversation about my sister's wedding. My wife didn't say anything in front of my family, but I could tell that she was very mad. When we got in the car, she immediately asked me why I didn't tell her. And I said I didn't want to stress her more than she already was about her mom. And it wasn't a big deal. It isn't like we attended the wedding together. She drove in the same car to the avenue. She didn't accept my excuse and said I should have informed her regardless of what was happening with her mom. And she felt incredibly betrayed. I told her she had no real reason to feel betrayed because it's not like anything more than just driving happened between us. She still said that I'm a jerk for not letting her know and for not making sure that she would be okay with it. My friends are understanding of both sides, but I'm honestly at a loss. So am I the jerk for not telling my wife that I drove to my sister's wedding with my ex also in the car? Honestly, yeah, you are definitely the jerk in this situation. You decided not to tell her even though you knew this would make her uncomfortable. I mean, seriously, that is not a good move. Like, even if you didn't cheat on your ex-girlfriend, this really did make you seem very untrustworthy. And there really is no good excuse. And it's awful that the original poster is like, oh, I didn't want to drive alone. Like, are you serious right now? You are literally an adult and you're going to your sister's wedding. Trying to justify your ex coming along with you all because you didn't want to drive alone is the weakest excuse I've ever heard in my life. If you really cared about your wife, you would have said something. You would have said, hey, my ex wants to ride with me and that's the only way I can get to the wedding and feel comfortable with it. And then you could have had a conversation about it. If anything, your mom was probably helping your wife out. She probably saw exactly what was going on, and I'm willing to bet that this accidental slip up was definitely on purpose. She probably wanted your wife to know exactly what went on, because what you did is really inappropriate and it really is a big deal. So hopefully you can see where you went wrong and hopefully you can find forgiveness from your wife, because honestly, based on what you've described, she has every reason to be upset and you absolutely, in my opinion, are completely in the wrong. A pair of entitled students think they're playing me as a fool, refusing to do their work while also demanding that I give them extensions as well as special treatment. So I decided to get revenge for them thinking that I was an easy class, resulting in them having to be held accountable for their actions. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, I was teaching a private urban religious college. Since I only had my master's degree, I was thankful for the opportunity to teach teach and get the experience before I moved on for my PhD. The school usually had me teach accelerated night courses, which were aimed on non-traditional learners, which is basically adults going back to school after many years off. I loved my students and had a blast teaching them. I had some issues with a few of them here and there, but generally my experiences were very positive. But there was this one couple, let's call them Hannah and Larry, that's not their real name. That semester, I had been asked to cover a more traditional course at the last minute. Rather than being accelerated, it met 3 times a week for an hour all semester long. Furthermore, it was very small, only about 4 students in total, which would have been fine, small classes can be great, and a paycheck was a paycheck, but it would have been so much better without Hannah and Larry. You see, this couple had attendance issues, to put it mildly. They would show up to a class or two, and then just up and vanish for a week or more with no word. Just when I suspected they were gone for good, they would show back up, usually with some kind of excuse. Whether it's medical issues or car problems or something with work, you name it, they basically said it. At first, I tried to be sympathetic. I always have the attitude that life happens, and when it rains, it can pour sometimes. But at a certain point, I began to grow a bit suspicious that they were just selling me a story. And honestly, I was immediately suspicious. But I'm usually inclined to let things slide to a certain point. This was all the worse because of the small nature of the class. Every time I did prep for a session, assuming all 4 would be present, they'd skip and throw my plans off. But when I just accepted that they would be gone and prepare activities for 2 students, they would magically show up. All of this would be very frustrating, but acceptable if it weren't for 2 things. For starters, whenever they showed up, these 2 would have an attitude about them and just expect everyone to conform to their presence and bend to their will. And secondly, they of course weren't doing any of the work. And these 2 factors came to a head as Hannah, who was the louder and more confident of the 2, would all but demand for extensions, as well as the ability to hand in their work late. And you know what? I would give it to them, only for both her and Larry to blow the work off again. I like to be pretty accommodating to my students within reason, but it quickly became obvious that Hannah thought she was playing me and could get whatever she wanted, and that simply couldn't stand. I have some level of pride and I hate being seen as a pushover, so I decided to start fighting back. Now, I could have crushed them completely and immediately and just said to them, no more late work, but I was sure that Hannah would just throw a fit and go straight to the school administration. I knew the admin would back me up, but it was a hassle and I really didn't want that. And besides, I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but I do have my limits. I was angry at this point, but I also have a wicked sense of humor. Hannah wants to think she has me wrapped around her finger? Okay, let her think that. I was gonna hand her enough rope to hang herself with it. So for the past few weeks, whenever she asked for an extension, I'd smile and say, sure, go ahead, and then chuckle when nothing came in. Every time I wrote her and Larry emails, reminding them of the new date, which is something I learned from this experience. Get everything in writing. And then we came to the final. I hadn't seen the 2 of them in a few sessions now, and was actually surprised to see them stumble in to take the test. They failed, of course, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Hannah comes up to me in front of the class and asks for another extension. I put my best teacher voice on, and I say that I was disappointed, but it's fine, life happens. However, I was posting grades the next weekend, so the absolute last minute I would accept any late work was Friday at 11:59 p.m. The second it hit midnight, my books were closed. I asked if they both understood, and they summoned up a bit of solemnness when they assured me that they did. Good. I confirmed it in an email and then set back to grade the finals over the week. I mean, there were only 4 of them, it wasn't that much work. I know there was a risk that they'd follow through and I would end up with a semester's worth of work to grade, but I was feeling pretty confident that that wasn't going to happen at this point. Friday night rolls around and I didn't work my second job that day, and my own schoolwork was all done. So I decided to buy a few beers and kick back and play some video games and just relax. I look down at a certain point and I realize that it's midnight. I open my email and I remind everyone that the books are now closed. If I give an extension, it's open to the whole class. I'm not playing favorites. Not that anyone else needed it, to be completely honest. I open up another beer, let out my best supervillain laugh, and went back to my game. Sunday comes around and I'm posting the final grades for the semester. I usually hate failing students, but I have to admit, I had a smile on my face as I assigned Hannah and Larry well-deserved Fs. 10 minutes after I hit save for the grades, I hear the familiar jingle of my email going off, followed by another. Now, who could this be? It is, of course, Hannah and Larry. Larry's email can be best summed up of him saying, "Oh my god, didn't you get my email with the work? I sent it on Friday." Hannah said the exact same thing. Now, it's obvious they're thinking that they can get another day or two to get the work this way. After all, hadn't I been so pliant and naive all semester? But they were absolute fools. They've played right into my hands, and this is the moment I've been waiting weeks for. I double-checked to make sure that I hadn't missed any emails from them, just to be safe. And after checking it over, I didn't get any, so I decided to type my response. I say to them, no, I didn't. I did just double-check after your last message. That's okay, emails get lost sometimes. At this point, I like to imagine Larry smiling while reading this. He had won again. God, this professor was such an idiot. I continued on. So what I'm going to need you to do is to go back into the email you sent me with the work. Just take a screenshot which has the timestamp of the email and forward that to me along with the work. That'll prove that you sent it on time. I then responded to Hannah's email saying the exact same thing. What was their response, you might be wondering? Did their eyes widen as they realized that they'd be held accountable for their actions? Did panic set in? Were there tears? Were there howls of regret? The gnashing of teeth and rending of hair? Sadly, I'll never know. I never heard from them again. They didn't even bother making another try. And as for me, well, I decided to buy some beer that night to celebrate once again. Occasionally, I'll tell my students the tale, a humorous reminder that yes, I'm accommodating, and yes, I'm pretty laid back, but also I'm not an idiot. So please, don't try to play me. The original poster really does sound like a good professor. They gave these people every opportunity to prove to them that they are not an idiot. Like they seriously gave them all the extensions on planet Earth. But when it came down to it, Hannah and Larry were just too dumb to do their work, and they seriously thought they had this in the bag. So it's really funny to see that they not only didn't get their work in on time, but they also lied about doing it in the first place, and they literally just ghosted this teacher the second he was like, that's okay, send a screenshot, loser, do it. Like they had nothing to stand on. They knew for a fact they got caught, and there was nothing they could do to try and fix it. So good for the teacher for not bending completely to these entitled students. They obviously had really terrible work ethic, and the fact that they failed that class is literally their own fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend's best friend has been acting very strange towards him lately, and it's making us very uncomfortable, and we seriously don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. He has a friend by the name of Dan, that's not his real name, and he's been friends with him for around 10 years. Dan has a drinking problem, and when I first met my boyfriend, he drank often as well. Pretty much the entirety of their relationship was getting drunk together and watching sports. Half the time, when we go over to Dan's house, he's already drunk. He tries to get my boyfriend to take shots with him, and sometimes passes out while we're watching a game. My boyfriend has slowed his drinking down immensely, and has become an overall healthier person, but Dan has remained the same. It's also important to note that Dan is gay, but is not super open about it. My boyfriend was one of the first people he came out to. Dan has very few friends that live in the area, and my boyfriend doesn't have many friends as well, but does have another best friend who Dan doesn't like for seemingly no reason. About a year ago, I started working for the same company as Dan. We get along fine, so we really never had any issues. However, over the past few months, there have been some questionable interactions between Dan and my boyfriend. The first was with the Super Bowl. For the last few years, my boyfriend was watching the Super Bowl at Dan's house, and this year, my boyfriend decided to throw a party because his team was playing. He invited some friends, including the one Dan doesn't like, so when he told Dan, Dan's exact words were to say that this was the end of an era, which made my boyfriend feel really guilty, and he almost canceled his plans altogether, but ultimately decided to follow through with the party. Dan ignored my boyfriend for some time after that. Then, a few months ago, Dan invited my boyfriend on a 10-day-long road trip for Dan's birthday. My boyfriend wanted me to join, but Dan insisted that we couldn't both have work off for that long, which is true as we are on a small team. My boyfriend tried to back out, but decided to go anyways when Dan told him that he would otherwise have to cancel the whole trip because that was too long to drive alone. Then, on the trip, Dan guilted my boyfriend into paying for expensive meals by bringing up the fact that he'd already spent a lot of money on hotels and a lot of money on gas. It's also important to note that Dan makes a lot more money than my boyfriend and I do, and he knows that fact. Then, a few weeks ago, Dan and I were texting about work. I could tell that he had been drinking, and he brought up the fact that he doesn't have any friends, and I said he had me and my boyfriend, and he responded by saying, he's in love with you, he only loves me. He quickly tried to say that he didn't mean anything weird by that, but I ignored the message. Then, a few days ago, he tried to invite my boyfriend over to watch a game and eat dinner. My boyfriend declined because he was tired and wanted to spend time with me instead. instead. Dan asked if he was declining because I work with him, and my boyfriend said no. Dan then said it was weird that he wouldn't want to watch the game with him since they always do that, and that he wouldn't be making the elaborate dinner he was planning because he didn't want to eat alone. My boyfriend felt guilty but irritated because he had just been over to Dan's house a few days ago. I guess I would just like some advice on how to handle this. My boyfriend is pretty non-confrontational, but he is a grown man who can stand up for himself. I'm just becoming more and more uncomfortable with Dan's behavior, but I also don't want to make this weird for us at work. It just feels like he maybe views my boyfriend as his life partner or something. What should I do? Dan is acting incredibly weird. Like, first off, yeah, they're really good friends, obviously, but it does kind of sound like Dan thinks about your boyfriend a little bit more than just a friend, because you put it best, he sees him as a life partner of some kind. This really does go beyond any kind of like basic friendship you might have, or even a really good friendship. It seems like Dan just doesn't even want you in the equation and wants your boyfriend all to himself. And I'm sorry, but that's just not how life works. Also, what is the deal with your boyfriend giving in to everything Dan requests? I totally understand that your boyfriend loves Dan, and he obviously has a good friendship with him, but I really don't feel like that friendship should be at the expense of every other aspect of your boyfriend's life. For example, you two are clearly dating, and it sounds like Dan does not like you in the slightest. I mean, it really does sound like this guy wants your boyfriend to be his best friend, as well as some kind of pretend partner at the same time. And also his drinking habits are really kind of concerning. So I know if I was at least in your boyfriend's shoes, I would be setting some very clear boundaries with this guy and saying, hey, we are good friends, but sometimes I'm gonna tell you no. And it's not because I don't like you, but it's because I have other things I want to do. And the responsibility of having that conversation really does fall on your boyfriend. You, unfortunately, in my opinion, probably can't do much about this, but your boyfriend absolutely can. And hopefully when he does, Dan is able to see where he's coming and hopefully straighten up his act. Am I the jerk for backing out of paying for my sister's wedding dress after she mocked the fact that my husband-to-be ran off with his mistress and dodged my wedding day completely? Here's what happened. So I had an incident on my wedding day back in 2017 where my former fiance abandoned me and ran away with his pregnant mistress. That image and those details are forever ingrained on my mind, and I'll never forget how I felt that day. This was truly a turning point in my life, and my family has always been there for me, so I kept close to them. My younger sister is currently engaged, and her wedding will be in a few months. She's struggling with money, so I decided to help her, as well as her fiance, and just pay for the wedding dress. This allowed her to be able to buy her dream dress gown, which cost about $7,000. It's a lot for a dress, but she literally cried because she wanted it. A few days ago, before we agreed to go buy the dress, we were eating dinner at my parents' home, and my cousin and aunt were there as well. My aunt was asking my sister about the wedding, and my sister said that everything was going according to plan, and then casually laughed and said, let's just hope he won't run away with a pregnant mistress or something like that on our wedding day. Now, when she said that, I was completely blown away. She laughed and my aunt laughed too, as if this was a joke. She was basically mocking me with what happened to me on my wedding day. It happened so fast that I got up and started screaming at her and started calling her an idiot. But my parents asked me to take it easy, and she said it was just a joke and that she didn't think I would react so intensely. My aunt remained seated, and my cousin asked me to calm down and to drink some water, but I grabbed my stuff. And as I was getting ready, I told my sister she was getting $0 for her dream dress, and then I just walked out. I heard a louder commotion as I walked, and my dad and cousin followed me outside, trying to talk to me, but I asked to be left alone. My dad spoke to me later, saying I was too harsh on my sister, and this was all over a joke, and said that I know that this is how her dark sense of humor is. They said she's been crying after I decided to back out of helping her, and said that this will ruin her wedding. They want me to reconsider my decision, since it might damage my relationship with my sister if I refused it. So am I the jerk for backing out of paying for my sister's wedding dress after she mocked and made fun of the fact that my husband-to-be ran off with his mistress? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this situation. If my spouse-to-be walked out on me with a mistress I didn't know about, and someone joked about that so casually as if it was okay to talk about, I think I would freak out as well. That is such an inappropriate thing to do. And you know what? Sure, maybe this is just how the sister is. But if you want to play stupid games, you're gonna get stupid rewards. And this is literally the consequences of somebody else's actions. And I always hate when people are like, oh, it's okay for them to say these horrible things. Their dark sense of humor is just the way that they are. No, their dark sense of humor is damaging to those around them, and there is no good excuse for that type of behavior. behavior. I personally hate it when other people try to justify these horrible toxic remarks they make and try to disguise this as if this is a part of their personality. And honestly, if that's the case, their personality is incredibly toxic and very hateful, meaning that in my opinion, they're just not a good person. And the sister in this occasion, who clearly thought they could joke about something that was not okay, in my opinion, got exactly what she deserved. Am I the jerk for not wanting my husband's niece to move in with us? So my husband and I don't have any biological kids. 4 years ago, we fostered a girl by the name of Sarah, that's not her real name, who's 19 years old, and she's still living with us after aging out. We're also fostering 3 kids, so needless to say, we have a pretty full household. My husband and Sarah have always had a difficult relationship. They're both pretty stubborn and butt heads a lot. We considered telling her social worker that it wasn't working out so many times, especially in the first year. And this is all because of how often they argued, how stressed the arguments made her, and because he has more of an authoritarian parenting style that she just didn't respond well to. She and I have always been very close though, and she considers me to be her mom. The problem is, since we've started fostering the younger 3, she's had to watch how good of a dad he is with the little ones and gets upset that he wasn't the same with her. It wasn't always rational, but there was a lot of resentment and a lot of jealousy that she's still having to work on. Now, my husband has a niece who's 18 years old who will be on her own this fall. She got a full scholarship from a school that's 10 minutes from us and a school that's an hour away. My husband wants her to move in. He'll get her a car. That way she can go to the school that's 10 minutes away and still obtain financial support from us. But here's the thing. I don't want to do that. For starters, we've already told Sarah that we will not be covering 100% of her expenses. She has a job that pays half of her car payments and insurance, as well as all of her gas, maintenance, and repairs, pays her portion of the phone bill, and is responsible for all of her spending money. Us paying for all of that with his niece would hurt Sarah, and he would have to either admit that he has a favorite, or we would have to fully support both of them. I said if she goes to the school an hour away, in an area with a much cheaper rent, I wouldn't mind sending her some money every month just to help out with rent and groceries, with the expectation that she has a job and pays for some of her own expenses. He says we shouldn't expect her to be on her own yet, and thinks that only partially supporting her is still too harsh. I told him we can't do anything for his niece that we're not already doing for Sarah, but he thinks it's unfair to compare the two and says that Sarah should be grateful for what we provided for her, no matter what we get from other people. I don't like how he's going about it, and he thinks I'm spoiling Sarah while abandoning his niece to spare Sarah's feelings. So I honestly just want to see if I'm in the wrong, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I personally think the original poster is absolutely in the right. I mean, despite the troubled relationship that your husband has with Sarah, it would be really contradictory and probably really toxic for you guys to welcome this niece into your home, as well as basically pay for all this stuff when you explicitly told Sarah that no, we're not going to pay for everything. It's gonna come off as if you're choosing favorites, which is definitely not going to help the situation, seeing as Sarah already feels like she's being left out in a lot of ways. So hopefully you can get through to your husband, because this is not a smart decision on his part, and it's just going to cause a lot of drama that really is unnecessary. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share my inheritance with my cousins? So I'm a 31-year-old female, and my mom passed away when I was 4 years old. She was 26 when she passed, and my dad has never been in the picture. After my mom's death, her twin brother, my uncle by the name of John, that's not his real name, became my legal guardian. He passed away suddenly 2 months ago. My grandparents started a watchmaking company over 50 years ago. They ran it for over 40 and retired a decade ago, meaning that my uncle took over. When I went to live with my uncle, he just started working for the company full-time after graduating college, and instead of having a babysitter, he would just take me to work if I was not in school. My uncle met his wife when I was 10 years old, and she was very nice to me. They got married when I was 12 and had their first child a few months later. When my cousin was born, things changed. She stopped packing my lunches and other stuff, and I know that she is not my mom, but before she would just look at me with a smile, and after she would barely acknowledge my existence. They ended up having 2 more sons. Anyways, I worked there part-time as a teenager helping out, and my uncle taught me a few things. My uncle took over the company in 2012, and my grandparents gave it to him. He took it from 145 employees all the way up to almost 1,000 employees in 10 years, even starting a watchmaking school. I went to college, and then my uncle hired me as a full-time designer. Time went on, and my cousin would work for like 4 hours a week and get a full week's pay, and I've heard all my cousins and my aunt talk about how watchmaking is stupid and that it's too much for something that only tells you the time. This comment in particular is really ignorant, as we don't make only watches anymore, and I thought my cousin paid just enough attention to know that, but it seems like I was wrong. So it never seemed like they were that interested in the company. Back to present day. After my uncle's funeral, my aunt informed me that they were selling the company as it is useless to them, but they were willing to let me make an offer first. I was so heartbroken. I just lost my uncle and was probably going to lose my job as well because there was no way I could ever get that kind of money. Last week, my uncle's will was read, and all the money was to be divided in equal parts amongst me, my cousins, and my aunt. She got his part of the house, and I got the company, 100% of the company, and they were furious. I now have some friends saying that it's their right to be upset for not getting something they understood they would be getting, and extended family is calling me a thief because it was their father's company, and my cousins texted me saying things like, "Just give it to us," while also saying they're going to be contesting the will and they're meeting with their lawyers tomorrow. They have even said they're going to destroy me for what I'm doing. My grandparents are on my side, but I just feel like I'm being harassed by all these people. What should I do? Your family is super toxic. Like, first off, they didn't care about that company at all. And if you really wanted to keep that going, you really could if you wanted to. But I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to. When it comes to the will itself, you definitely want to try and get a lawyer because it sounds like your extended family is probably going to fight tooth and nail to try and get what they want. And while it is unfair for you, that is just the reality of how selfish they are. But hopefully this all works out for you and you're able to find some kind of peace regardless of the result. An entitled Karen threatens to have an employee deported after her stupid kid breaks merchandise at their store, claiming that she shouldn't have to pay for it and that she refuses to be liable for anything that got broken. Here's what happened. So I live in a city in the United Kingdom that's in no shortage of entitled people. I have my own stories, including one or two I've posted before, but this one was on another level. Close to the high street and the malls is a shop that specifically sells acoustic musical instruments, mostly guitars, drums, and a lot of folk instruments like lutes and mandolins. They also sell niche, hard-to-find instruments, including second-hand ones, and depending on what they have in stock, these instruments can be really niche. About 5 years ago during the summer, I had some downtime in town before I met a friend down the road, so I went into this shop just to browse what they had. I have zero musical ability, but I had always wanted to check this place out. In the back of the shop, I saw an instrument that I now know to be a Chinese guzheng, which is a flat-lang string instrument with about 20 strings. This one in particular was over 5 feet long, and even though it had some metal parts and some pearly-looking decorative inserts, the bulk of the body was a polished dark wood. It was beautiful to look at, and even though the shop has a policy where people can play any instrument as long as they're careful, I just couldn't bring myself to touch it, especially when I saw it was priced at over $500, and this was even marked at secondhand. Of course, there were other fascinating instruments and other things in the shop itself, but this instrument is the star of this particular story. After about 10 minutes browsing the shop, listening to people picking up instruments and jamming with a super chill owner, I get ready to leave, but before I do, in comes an entitled Karen and her little entitled child, who looks to be about 6 years old. The spoiled child immediately starts running around the shop, poking at various display instruments, while the entitled Karen just hangs out by the door on her phone. Obviously, this kid was the one that wanted to be here, and the entitled Karen literally could care less. The owner immediately stiffens and watches the kid as he runs around this really densely packed shop, trying to grab anything he could reach, giggling and shrieking with unchecked energy. The entitled Karen still stays within a few meters of the door, and she is still just browsing on her phone. Now remember when I said that that really expensive instrument is a flat-laying instrument? It is usually played on a table or on a mount, and this one was rested on 2 sets of legs that held it pretty low to the floor, which would be the perfect height for a 6-year-old. The kid sees it and barges over, starting to pick at the strings wildly. It's awful to listen to, and even though he's been patient so far, this is where the owner steps in and says, "Ma'am, your kid is over there playing with this instrument." But the entitled Karen says, "He's just playing, just leave him alone, he'll get bored in a minute." The owner tries to explain by saying that this instrument is very expensive, and that we have other children's guitars over there that he might like. And right about then, the kid starts to scream, "Mommy, I want the big guitar!" But the entitled Karen shoots down that idea and says that he doesn't even know how to play it, and that they need to leave or they're going to be late. But the stupid spoiled child wasn't having it, and this is right about where everything goes south. The entitled kid kid grabs the instrument and tries to take it off the legs. But this thing is taller than some full-grown adults, and it is a chunky beast. I guess this kid had enough freaky 6-year-old strength to lift it off of one of the 2 legs before he let go of it completely. The expensive Chinese instrument crashes onto the floor, and the sound it makes is awful. It is completely split down the middle of its length, and at least one of the strings has been split. It was probably quite old, so it might have been more fragile than it should have been. But even so, it's trashed, completely ruined. The kid starts freaking out, and he's screaming, crying, and he's running to his mother. The owner runs over to check and see if the kid is okay, and the entitled Karen says, "Of course he's not okay. That piece of rubbish could have crushed his feet." As an FYI, his feet were fine. He literally just sprinted across the shop back to his mother, clearly not in any pain at all. At this point, the kid was screaming that he wants to go home. He wants to go home right now. The entitled Karen says, "Come on, we're leaving. If he's hurt himself in any way, I'll sue you for everything you've got." The owner then says, "Wait a second, that instrument is completely wrecked." But the entitled Karen says, "So what? It's a weird guitar. If it was worth that much, you should have had it insured." The owner then says that it's not a guitar, it's a very expensive Chinese instrument, and it was worth over $500. "You're telling me it cost $500 for a chunk of wood? You're joking. It sounded awful, by the way. If you think I'm paying for some used, overpriced Chinese rubbish, you've got another thing coming." It's at this point that I notice that one of the owner's employees has come down from upstairs to see what's going on. As a fun fact, the city I live in houses students from 5 different universities, including 2 within a mile of each other. And these universities take in a lot of international students that are allowed to take part-time work in the city. Now, the person coming down the stairs is clearly student age just by looking at him. He also happened to be East Asian, and just going by statistics of the city here, most likely he was Chinese. The entitled Karen also seems to notice this man standing there, and she immediately pulls out her phone and points at this man with her other hand. She's going red in the face, moving herself closer to the door and pushing her kid outside while she confronts both the owner and this man who came downstairs. The entitled Karen says, "Was that thing yours, huh? Did you bring it with you? You can forget it if you think I owe you anything. My son's feet are probably broken, and if I hear anything about this or see either of you again, I'll sue you for negligence and have you deported back to your home country. I've got both of you on camera on my phone. I know who you are." And with that, this entitled Karen charges out the door, grabs her entitled kid by the wrist, and bolts down the street. The owner and the student just look absolutely shattered. The other people in the shop, including me, offer to help clean up and ask if they're okay. After a few minutes, I had to leave them to it as I was already late to meet with my friend. In the end, I never followed up on the situation, but 5 years later, the owner is still running the shop, so clearly nothing happened to them. I took my now partner in there a couple of weeks ago, and they had not only one of those instruments that the lady broke, but now they had 2 absolutely beautiful versions of it up for sale. So in the end, it looks like things kind of worked out. That really is an awful situation. That entitled Karen was very clearly racist. Like, there's no other way of putting it. She made a stereotype based off the student coming down the stairs and tried to make false claims that she was going to start deporting people if she got in trouble for breaking the instrument, which, by the way, thanks for admitting that your kid broke it. And it's also ironic of how bad of a parent she is if she would bolt out the door after her kid supposedly broke his feet. Like, wouldn't you want to carry him and take him to the hospital if he really did break his feet? Like, seriously, get a grip, lady. But it does sound like nothing really did happen, and just like the typical entitled Karen that she is, she was all bark and no bite. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked down below in the description. Am I the jerk for exposing my future sister-in-law at a family event that she severely bullied me while we were in high school? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. In high school, I used to be friends with a girl by the name of Anna. We were close until junior year when I discovered that she has been spreading false rumors about me. However, even after I stopped being friends with her, she continued to make up lies about me and made my life a nightmare right up until we graduated. We went to different universities, and I'm in my mid-20s now. My older brother Carter went to the same university as Anna, and recently he announced that he had gotten engaged to his girlfriend. Our family was happy for him, but we were surprised at the same time since we didn't know he was dating anyone. He said he would introduce her at the upcoming family party. The party rolled around, and guess who walked in the door with Carter? That's right, it was Anna. I honestly thought I was hallucinating, and I felt sick seeing her again. Carter left Anna with some relatives and then came over to me and asked to talk. We went into another room, and Carter explained how he had met Anna at a party and didn't recognize recognize her, but it was love at first sight. But after he found out her full name, he realized it was the same Anna who spread lies about me. He confronted her and she claimed to not remember me or anything she did. He let it go because he really liked her. He then pleaded with me to be nice to her since she didn't remember what she had done and that she was a good person. I just told him I needed a moment to myself to process everything. When I eventually went back to the party, I decided I would ignore her. I didn't say anything rude, I just didn't talk to her or acknowledge her at all. She didn't talk to me or acknowledge me either. But when we sat down to eat, everything started to pop off. One of my aunts asked me how I felt about my brother getting married. I tried changing the subject, but she kept pressing me on it. So I eventually snapped and said something like, I actually don't feel great about it, considering his future wife bullied me and never apologized. Everyone then turned to look at Anna. She just started crying and ran out of the room. Carter went after her and they left early. The rest of the night was chaotic because everyone was asking me what happened, and I told them. Later, Carter called me and said I was a horrible person for embarrassing Anna in front of the whole family, and I was being petty over high school drama. He demanded that I apologize to her, but I refused and said that he was the awful one for blindsiding me with this, and that if she never bothered to reach out and apologize for what she did while they were dating, I wasn't going to let it go now that they were engaged. He kept insisting that she doesn't remember, and she can't apologize for something she doesn't remember, but I think that is utter BS. I ended up hanging up on him. The way I see it, I was asked a direct question and I provided a direct answer. Also, I don't think I have any obligation to cover for her when she made my life a nightmare, especially when she's obviously lying about not remembering what she did. So am I the jerk for exposing her for the bully she was to me in high school? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I would have done the exact same thing. Call me vicious, call me petty, but if someone messes with you like that and makes your life a nightmare as a child, you not only have no reason to try and forgive them, but you also have every right to call them out when they suddenly have this convenient amnesia about what they did. And that is exactly what this Anna person did. And you know what? Your brother is an idiot. If he really cared about you, and if he really did know who this person was, he should have called you and said, hey, there's this girl I met, and at least explained what was going on. Like seriously, he knew what was going on. There's no way he didn't know this was the same person who bullied his sister. Like, come on, are you serious right now? And he is seriously a complete moron if he thought that little talk off to the side would have been more than enough to try and satiate any of the anger that the original poster was feeling towards Anna. Like, I don't know about you, but as someone who did get bullied in high school, I would be absolutely furious if my bully was marrying my sibling and my sibling didn't even tell me about it in the first place. Also, you can obviously see that Anna suddenly remembers what she did when she ran out of the room crying. Like, come on, are you serious? Why else would she run out of the room crying if she didn't know she was absolutely at fault and the original poster had her dead to rights? So personally, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You didn't do anything wrong, and if anything, you redeemed your childhood from this lady who clearly tried to ruin it. And if anyone's got a problem with that, they can take it up with your brother Carter, because he's the one who's dumb enough to try and marry her. Am I the jerk for not wanting a stranger to attend my wedding? So a couple of months ago, my brother told me he had been dating a guy and wanted to bring him as a guest to my wedding. My wedding is very small, and it's going to be an intimate one, with only family and close friends of myself and my fiance being invited. I asked who this guy was, and he wasn't anyone I've ever met before. My fiance and I had taken care of only inviting the people that we were closest to, and I really didn't want someone I've never met before there. My brother wasn't happy. He said it was the perfect opportunity to introduce his new boyfriend to the family. I said my wedding isn't for that. It's for celebrating my marriage. To compromise, I suggested he plan a family dinner and bring his boyfriend to that instead. Once the dinner was over, I would have met the boyfriend, so then I'd probably feel more comfortable with him going to the wedding. My brother agreed, and I followed up with him a week later, asking when the dinner was, and he asked me to schedule it. I said I was in the middle of planning a wedding, and I felt he needed to schedule it since it's his boyfriend. I followed up later, and he said he wasn't sure what day would work. In fact, he never brought it up after that, and neither did I, because I was honestly so busy. My wedding is next week, and my brother still wants to bring his boyfriend, but I said no. I don't want some stranger at my wedding. At this point, it's too late to schedule a dinner, because the next week is booked with wedding activities, and there's no day I'll have time to drive 2 hours to where the rest of the family is. He says that I'm being a jerk for not letting him bring his boyfriend to the wedding, so this honestly begs the question, am I the jerk for not wanting a stranger at my wedding? I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is your wedding. You get to decide who's there and who isn't there, regardless of who they are. And it's incredibly selfish for anybody to try and dictate who can and cannot be there. I mean, they're not getting married. They're not the person getting married actively right now. That literally falls on you and your partner. And just imagine if you didn't have any kind of autonomy over who could and couldn't be there. Do you know how annoying that would be and how frustrating it would be to have anybody show up to your wedding? You clearly want it to be a small and intimate environment. You want to have people there that you know and care about and have some kind of connection with. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to have for your wedding. There's nothing wrong with you being hesitant about this new person who you literally, by the way, don't even know. So you saying no to your brother's boyfriend showing up to your wedding does not make you a bad person, and it definitely doesn't make you a jerk. If anything, your brother is clearly just being lazy, and he couldn't take the time to try and schedule a dinner so that you could at least be comfortable with him being around. Like seriously, he thought you were gonna plan the dinner? You're planning for a wedding. You don't have time for this. If he wanted to get this done, he really should have done it himself. So honestly, this is nobody's fault but your brother's. Because if he really wanted his new boyfriend to be welcomed into the family, he would have taken the time to try and introduce him to you before your wedding. My boyfriend is moving down to Florida for work and wants me to follow with him, which would then leave behind so many business opportunities as well as my family in my hometown. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about 2 years now. He is in the military and we met through a mutual friend in my small town while he was stationed there. 1.5 years into our relationship, he's getting reassigned to Florida, which is 16 hours from my small town. We have been doing long distance due to myself being in school. I just graduated and he expects me to move down to Florida, which would be an amazing opportunity, but in my small town, my family lives here, as well as my mother who I'm very close with. I have 4 Airbnbs, I have great health insurance and a great job. I do not want to leave my mother and sell my Airbnbs. Yes, I could do it long distance, but my Airbnbs give me passion. As they are mine, I renovate them, and I clean them after every guest that checks out. So honestly, what should I do? Should I move to Florida for my boyfriend, or stay in my small town with my family and my passion? My boyfriend doesn't talk about marriage at all. He will give me a small word about marriage, almost as if he's baiting me with it. In Florida, I'm gonna have no family with no plans of marriage. Basically, I will have absolutely nothing for me there. I know I will make something of myself, but my mother is guilting me into staying in my small town, and my boyfriend is guilt-tripping me to move to Florida. What should I do? Honestly, I think you need to reread what you wrote, because you have not given a single reason as to why you would want to go to Florida. Like honestly, if you don't want to go there, then maybe you should try long distance again. Being pressured to go simply because your boyfriend's gonna be living there for work is in and of itself incredibly unfair and very selfish of your boyfriend. He's expecting you to uproot your entire life and your business opportunities just to move to an entirely different state and be with him specifically. And you would be going down there without any plans of a job or any way of supporting yourself. And that, in my opinion, is a really bad idea. If anything, I would at least try to find some kind of work if you wanted to go down there and be with him, but to go down there and leave everything you've established behind without some kind of plan of action when you do get down there is only going to cause a nightmare for you and your boyfriend. And that, in my opinion, is a terrible idea. A guy I started dating a week ago said that we need to have a talk about me not calling him back, but I barely know him and I really feel kind of creeped out by this, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I met this guy about a week ago. We hung out 3 times since then. He would say things like he feels like he's known me forever on the first date, and I thought that was kind of corny, but whatever. The second date, he said he wants to take care of me and wants me to talk to him about anything I'm going through. I also thought that was way too early on to say that, but again, whatever. But honestly, I didn't really feel like going out with him on the 3rd date because I really felt a bit uneasy. But I have a history of turning down men who are very open and zealous about wanting me. It's a cycle I'm trying to break, so I said to myself, let's do it. He said he had to leave the next weekend. He was only gone for like 2 or 3 days. The second day he was gone, he called me and I didn't answer. I texted and I said I would call him back later. Honestly, I felt a bit anxious when he called for some reason. Plus, I get in moments where I just don't want to talk to anyone for a while, and all my friends and family know this. I texted him hi the next day, and he immediately responded by saying, "Hi, I thought you said you would call me back yesterday." I apologized and I called later, but he didn't answer, and when he called me back, he sounded really tired. At the end of the conversation, he said to me, "You said you would call me back yesterday, but you didn't. But you know what? It's good. We could discuss it later." I said to him, "I'm sorry, but why is this a thing we need to discuss later?" He said something, I can't really remember, because I got a little bit upset and a little bit triggered, but he said again that we're just gonna discuss it later. I said to him, "Look, I apologize. slightest, and I am sorry. I should have just told you that I didn't want to talk that day. But why are we having a discussion about this if I met you like a week ago? He just said to me, okay, we won't discuss it then, and then changed the subject, but I was not interested in talking more at that point. I just hate being questioned by someone I barely know. Part of me is wondering if I could have said it better, and part of me is wondering if this is an early sign of possessiveness. I don't know. I've had such bad luck dating, plus I've made very bad choices in dating people who really couldn't care about me, or are not serious about me in the past, so maybe I'm not used to people being concerned about dating me. I've gone 5 years without a serious relationship, so my dating intelligence feels so low. What should I do? Honestly, this guy kinda sounds like a weirdo, I'm not gonna lie. You have met him a week ago, you barely know him, and this guy's trying to be like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about this later. Like, no we're not, this is weird. Why do we have to talk about me not answering your phone call? It also kinda makes me wonder if this is how he's gonna act later in the relationship. Like, let's say you do become boyfriend and girlfriend, and you're going steady for a while. If you don't do things that he wants you to do, is he suddenly gonna turn into this weirdo and be like, wow, why didn't you call me back? Why didn't you do this, that, or the other? Like, seriously, that just sounds really creepy to me. A week into a relationship, in my opinion, should not have that type of criticism already. Even if he had hoped for a call, this guy should have framed it in such a way where he was looking forward to talking to you, instead of act like he was reprimanding you like you're a child, which you definitely are not. So in my opinion, if you do decide to keep seeing this guy, I just would not ignore that weird feeling that you have about the way he's acting, because from the outside looking in, his behavior is incredibly strange, and I don't think you should ignore that in the slightest. My entitled manager tries to force me to do a very dangerous job that I am absolutely not qualified for. They even threaten me with getting fired if I didn't sign up for this job and complete it in a timely manner. But I got revenge by exposing them to the general public, getting nearly all of my managers fired, as well as costing the company as a whole millions of dollars in the process. And I've never been more satisfied to leave a job in my life. Here's what happened. So this story is about how I resigned from my warehouse job once and for all. The company I used to work for implemented a new way of paying management commissions and bonuses. It was a money saved, money paid type of thing. Every little thing had a bonus attached to it. This month you saved on stationery? Here's $100. Didn't spend any money to repair the store in any kind of way? Here's $500. You get the picture. Normally this wouldn't affect us, but there were a few categories that were outright dangerous and unfortunately had the biggest bonuses attached to them. It started with the manager and the area manager wanting us to change light panels in the store. Now, there were a few problems with this. The lights were so old that the wiring was faulty and unpredictable, and the way the lights were rigged would require you to have training as an electrician to remove the panels and replace the light bulbs. Management was hoping that we would undertake the work, saving costs on hiring a professional electrician and thus receiving a hefty bonus. I outright refused, but a few of my colleagues were roped into it. After one particular incident of a worker receiving a mild shock, we all banded together and said no way. A week later, we were emailed a link to a new online training course. The main theme, warehouse employees were to undertake various maintenance tasks, and the main one was changing lights and the light panels. And if we didn't complete this training, then we would be unsuitable as employees, we would have not met our hiring requirements, and we could have been possibly terminated. I set about taking screenshots of everything, including the mandatory test. It became evident very quickly that I was one of the only employees who had refused to complete the training, and I was eventually confronted by the area manager. They said I had a week to complete the training or I would be written up with an official warning, and because of the severity of the warning, I could face disciplinary action and possible immediate termination. Now, what management didn't count on was anyone sharing this information with outsiders. I put together a nice packet with all the new tests and training that would force warehouse employees to do these dangerous jobs, but also copies of the new management bonus structure where it explicitly had categories that detailed if employees could do in-store repairs and save the company money, they would receive a hefty bonus. There was even an award for most money saved. I also made sure to include the copious amounts of emails and text messages showing that management was violating a lot of health and safety guidelines, especially with the lack of warehouse staff to safely unload and load the trucks and the shipping containers. It was honestly a very dangerous mess, and one of the worst things I found deep into our contracts stated that we weren't officially covered to unload transfers and trucks, that the company would hire professional contractors to unload, and it was up to us to take over once the goods were safely unloaded. Why, you may ask? Because the company didn't want to cover us medically if we injured oversight on all of our behalves, but shocking nonetheless. mess. I checked in with my best friend who is a lawyer, who helped me navigate any non-disclosure issues and who pointed me in the right direction with sending off this information. Once I had sent everything off, everything went back to normal for a while. Management kept pressuring me into signing off on undertaking dangerous jobs just to make their bonuses, and you know what? I refused. It all came to a head when the area manager essentially said to me that if I don't sign off on this next shift, I will be fired on the spot. No matter how much I pleaded my case, the area manager tried to spin it as a new company wife initiative and that we should take pride in our workplace, which is such a load of garbage. I struggle with this a lot, and I didn't know what to expect when I got off the bus and made my way to the store the next morning. When I walked in ready for my shift, the store was essentially deserted. I opened the warehouse and I checked the transfer sheets, and then grabbed my water bottle and headed into the store to fill it up. As I was standing by the water filter, the customer service manager came downstairs with this cheeky smile on his face. Apparently, the manager was now under close review and was currently in mediation, having to answer for all the garbage corners that she had cut to make her bonuses. And the best part is that the area manager and general manager were both fired. Apparently, they were given the choice to resign without any payouts or benefits, or the shareholders and the CEO of the company would begin an investigation into these practices. I honestly couldn't believe it. A few hours later, the CEO and the CFO arrived and tried to offer me a bonus for speaking up, a formal apology, and a raise if I was to drop the case. I just grabbed my bag and resigned right there on the spot. There's no way I was going to drop anything. I walked out of there with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they'd be investigated and hopefully taken to task on what they tried to force us to do. From what I saw online and on the company's website, it took a long time for the company to recover. Even to this day, you can see the company has been bought, changed hands over and over again. Millions of dollars have been lost because of this. They've received bad publicity, public trust and employee trust is now gone, and they did this to themselves, all just to save a few bucks, as well as to try and reward the greedy management. Wow, that is actually crazy. To think that management would try to force you to do a very dangerous job, and then you just basically say, no, I'm not going to do that, and you stick to your morals, that is honestly awesome to see. So good for you for costing them millions of dollars. They seriously had it coming. They were literally putting your life and your coworkers' lives in danger, and somebody had to speak up, because if you didn't, somebody would probably have gotten hurt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My girlfriend thinks that we can afford anything we want all the time, and it's now causing a rift between us as she is demanding that we go on this long summer vacation without realizing that we simply don't have the money for it. Here's what happened. So we've been together since 2013. We own a house that we bought in 2019 and have one kid born in 2021. We have 2 cars and we both work. Now, my girlfriend came from a not so poor but also not so rich household. Lately, my girlfriend has been on about selling our house to move a little bit closer to her work. It takes about 35 minutes to drive there. And then she also wants to go on summer vacation with her family with our pop-up camper during the summer from July until August, which is very expensive, both for the gasoline price and renting a spot to camp on. 2 days ago, our main car broke down. I can fix most things myself, but this time it's throwing so many codes that I do not know where to begin. So I was going to take it to the mechanic once I get an appointment, since we need 2 cars and the main car is the car we use to drive the kids, which is also what she takes to work. So right now, also having to sell a house and buying a new one is going to be really expensive. Today, I told my girlfriend we can't do all 3 of these things because maybe the repair on the car is expensive, and if the repair is expensive, then we either sell the house or take a summer vacation. We can't afford all 3 of these things. And when I said this, she got mad. She was upset that I didn't know what was wrong with the car and that she is sick and tired of having to drive all this way to work and back. Keep in mind, she wanted to move here. She proceeded to rant, saying that she does not want to spend another summer staying at home, doing absolutely nothing like we do all night. Now, it is true that we barely do anything besides go to her parents' place, but it's also because anytime I suggest something, she immediately declines it. What can I do here? She does not understand that we can't afford to have everything that she wants. What should I do? I think it's important to note that your girlfriend is being financially immature. I mean, you put it best. You can't afford all 3 of these things. Some kind of compromises need to be made. So maybe instead of selling the house and going on some weird vacation for a month and a half, maybe plan something that's a little bit more affordable, instead of something that's going to drive up your budget and empty everybody's wallets. The original poster goes on to say that his girlfriend is not very good with money money, and she tends to buy things on impulse, which kind of makes sense. I mean, honestly, how much is she footing the bill with getting some kind of new house and a good vacation going? Because from the sounds of it, it kind of looks like she's putting all of that on you to figure out, and that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. So hopefully the two of you can sit down and have some kind of budgeting session so she can see exactly what you can afford while also understanding what you absolutely cannot afford. My friend's boyfriend is an alcoholic, and I don't want him at my wedding, and I'm not sure how to break the news to her, and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I've been good friends with my friend for about 10 years. Over the course of our friendship, we've been there for each other through the ups and the downs of our romantic relationships, as well as our partners, our breakups, moving homes, being supportive of each other, and then some. She has been together with her long-term boyfriend for 4 years, while I have been with my fiance for 3 years. She's been living with her boyfriend since the COVID lockdown at the beginning of their relationship, and I moved in with my partner 6 months into our relationship. My fiance proposed to me very close to our 2-year anniversary. Once this occurred, my friend completely ghosted me and our entire friend group for a full month. I didn't pry, but did check in at least once a week on her. I sent text messages stating that I hope she is okay, and if she needs anything at all to just reach out and I'll be there to support her. At a dinner party towards the end of this ghosting period, but not before, our mutual friend let it be known that our friend was missing in action from the dinner party and had been missing in action for the past month because she was jealous of my engagement and another couple's engagement, which occurred a few months prior to mine. She was upset that my relationship had progressed to engagement so quickly and that our other friends got engaged after dating for 6 years. All the while, she'd been with her boyfriend for the past 3 years without any hint of a proposal. I say this because this is how my friend thinks. She's always comparing herself to others, and she's settling for her current boyfriend of 6 years. Now onto the boyfriend of my friend. He is a raging alcoholic. He drinks a bottle of bourbon every night to sleep. He will get so drunk he can't find their bathroom and will just go to the bathroom on the dresser drawers, as well as the bed or in the corner, pretty much anywhere he can find. He drinks on the job and has been fired from multiple positions because of this. All of this is bad enough, but my friend enables him. The boyfriend doesn't have a license anymore. It was suspended due to multiple DUIs. Yet she allows him to drive her car every day, will buy him liquor, and take him to bars to drink. She doesn't let him drive when they go out, thank God. Now, the enabling is not great, but her boyfriend is mean and rude to not only her when he drinks, but to myself and our other friends as well. He's called multiple people horrible names, has yelled at my friend multiple times in front of the public eye. He's rude to wait staff, and it's embarrassing to be out in public with them due to his ignorance. With this background, honestly, here's the question. My wedding is going to be an open bar. I don't want to include my friend's boyfriend because of his alcoholism. Our wedding is in an industrial space, so safety is a concern. In addition, his attitude and rudeness is the main issue I have. I don't want to deal with him. However, my friend is so far down the road with blinders on, she would see it as the biggest slight if I do not invite him to the wedding, and would potentially even end our friendship if I don't invite him. How do I breach the subject of her not receiving a +1? Because I'm honestly not comfortable with him attending, and I seriously don't know what to do. For starters, it doesn't really sound like you need to invite her because she's been ghosting you for what, several months at this point, and all because you got engaged. Like seriously, she does not sound like a good friend. What kind of friend would act like that and then run off? Was she ever your friend to begin with? There's a lot of questions I've got. But if you do decide to invite her and bring her to your wedding, I think you just be upfront and straightforward with her. You're both adults, you're both in your 30s, she obviously knows what's going on, but maybe you spelling it out might be a good thing. If I was in your shoes, I would just tell her straight up, look, your boyfriend is an alcoholic and I don't want him at my wedding. It's that simple. If she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to show up. But based on her previous behavior, it doesn't sound like she's a good friend anyways. So really, would there be anything missed by her not showing up? Regardless though, I think you need to be ready for your friend to have some kind of reaction to this, because chances are she's probably in denial and she's probably going to react very strongly when you tell her that her boyfriend can't come to your wedding. My ex-boyfriend has no place to live at the moment, but I want him out of my house and I no longer want him living with me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. So to start things out, my ex broke up with me in late March. It was absolutely heartbreaking as I still was very much in love with him and willing to do anything. He immediately started looking for places to move to as we do live together. He found a place that was being built and signed the contract, which stated he would be able to move in at the end of May or the beginning of June. And I agreed to this. However, now it's June and they said they would contact him at least 4 weeks before move-in date, and they still haven't done that, which means it'll be July at the earliest that he will move in. And even that is not certain, as they said they are having issues and cannot provide an estimated move-in date. We currently live in a studio. We've kept it nice and civil with each other and treat each other as regular friends or roommates. However, this is absolutely killing me, as I cannot move on properly this way. The added time of him moving out just feels so agonizing, since I feel that whenever I'm at home, I'm suffering in his presence and I'm trying to mask my sadness. I don't even have a space to cry without him seeing or hearing me. The cherry on top is that I also heard that he's active on dating applications. That just ripped my heart to shreds. It's of course not bizarre that your ex would do that, but to know that and still see him every day and be reminded of it when I still have feelings for him is terrible. I also care a lot for him and I don't want to hurt him. He's a good person to me, but I just want to move on with my life and I can't do this for much longer. We pay rent equally for the time he lives here. He doesn't have friends or family that live close by us, and I seriously don't know what to do. Is it fair to ask him to just move out regardless of his situation? How would I even go about asking that? Would that be an unfair request to make? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, considering the circumstances, I don't think it's unusual to say, hey, you need to move out. You have been more than accommodating. You've allowed him time to figure out a place to live, and that place is clearly being delayed. But you know what? Your timeline doesn't need to be delayed. Now, in terms of what is or isn't fair, you've got to remember that he broke up with you. You don't owe him anything. It is totally understandable that you would still have feelings for him and you want to take care of him, but trust me, he's moved on. He's on dating applications. He is obviously looking for someone else in his life, and unfortunately, that person is not you. And of course, obviously, you're not in a place to accept that yet, but that is the reality of what's going on. If anything, it kind of seems like your ex is taking advantage of your kindness and your considerate nature. I mean, you're letting your ex-boyfriend live with you. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would have let that fly. And sure, you think there's no friends or family he can crash with, but if you told him he needs to get lost and find other places to live, he would figure something out. Get a hotel, go to an Airbnb, something. So honestly, if he's willing to move on and actively try to date while living with you, then you can also actively move on with your life and ask him to move out. Am I the jerk for telling my sister it's her own fault that she's alienated herself from the family? Here's what happened. So this all started about 5 years ago when my older sister came to me and told me she was looking into our genealogy and wanted me to do one of those novelty genetics tests. I wasn't enthusiastic about it, but she was weirdly insistent, so I gave her the sample she asked for and moved on, not really giving it much more thought. At no point did I have a digital login for any results. I also never thought to mention this to my parents. A few months after this, my sister moved 6 hours away for another job and was non-communicative. She would call my dad every once in a while, but my brother and I found that if we didn't call or text her first, we would not hear from her, and she basically cut my mom off outright. When we would question her about this, she would refuse to acknowledge that that's what she's been doing. Ultimately, we all just accepted it. My mom was totally baffled and brokenhearted, and the rest of us became closer with my sister as a result. Even she and dad only talk a few times a year now, and none of us have seen her in person in 5 years. Earlier this year, my brother did a 23andMe and got weird results that led to hard conversations. My mom and dad came clean that the three of us were donor conceived, a choice they made together because my dad is infertile. They apologized for not telling us earlier, but dad felt very strongly about not telling us because he never wanted us to think of him as anything less than our dad. My dad called my sister and told her this too after we talked, and she basically had a breakdown on the phone. It turns out that she knew that dad wasn't her biological father and firmly believed for 5 years that mom had cheated on dad and had been nursing intense resentments as a result. Apparently, she did a genetic test 5 years ago and was puzzled that the ancestry information didn't match with what we knew about my dad's family. And that's right about when she came to me to get a sample. She sent it to a lab with hers, and they confirmed the results were genetic half-siblings with the same mother and different fathers. She drew her own conclusions from there, meaning that dad was my biological father and not hers, and that mom had an affair, and decided to uproot her life to get a fresh start. She's now furious about the situation and feels like she's been robbed of the last 5 years. When we last talked, I was maybe less sympathetic than I should have been, and I told her cutting us off with no explanation was an insane move, and if she had told us even a fraction of what was going on, it could have been cleared up years ago. I acknowledge that mom and dad messed up here by not being truthful about our genetic identities, which I'm also struggling with my own feelings on this, but in the end, it was her decision to do this dramatic move and slow fade away with zero explanation. I also expressed how hurt my brother and I had felt when we were left out of her life, and that it wasn't fair to punish us for what she thought had happened. So honestly, am I the jerk for telling my sister that her alienation and isolation is literally her own fault? I personally don't think you're the jerk. Yes, the situation sucks, and a lot of assumptions can be made, but your sister's decision to literally cut everybody off and say, okay, I'm gonna get a fresh start, that was all her choice. And I mean, obviously so. If she had talked to any of your siblings or her parents, she could have gotten that information probably much quicker, and it would have saved her 5 years of being angry and frustrated. Like, don't get me wrong, your parents really suck on multiple levels, but if your sister had actually spoken to either of them 5 years ago, a lot of pain could have been avoided, and honestly, that is literally all her fault. My coworkers are constantly bothering me, and considering how busy I am in life, I seriously don't want to have to eat lunch with all of them all the time every day. And now I don't know how to tell them kindly that I don't want to eat lunch with them, and I just want my lunch hour break to myself. What should I do? So I first want to start off by saying that this is a temporary job, and I've only known my coworkers for about 2 months, and we're going to be working together for 2 more months. Overall, I feel very overwhelmed with things happening in my life. I have a full-time job. I'm also attending several courses in the evenings. My average day starts at 6 in the morning, and I get to work by 8:30. I leave work by 5:30 p.m., and then I go to school from 6 o'clock all the way until 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock p.m., I'm home and I'm showering and I'm in bed by 11. Because this is a temporary job, I'm also spending 10 to 15 hours a week applying to jobs because I have nothing lined up after this. I'm getting 7 hours of sleep or less per night, 4 days a week. On Fridays, I'm trying to do something with my friends, but I'm often too exhausted. On weekends, I'm meal prepping, grocery shopping, and going to appointments and doing homework. I feel very stretched thin, but I paid thousands of dollars for these courses and I can't just give up. It's just a few more months. I've got to make it work. When my coworkers constantly want to get together during lunch or breaks, it's actually very irritating. I've made good friends with them, but our conversations have shifted to complaining about management. Often, out of our 1 hour long lunch break, 50 minutes are spent complaining about management. I literally don't want to be a therapist for somebody else 5 hours a week, on top of doing everything myself. I don't have the energy to maintain these relationships. I just want my lunch break in peace and quiet, and my lunch is the only break I have for 4 days straight sometimes. So far, I've just been faking the pleasantries, and I accidentally made some new friends here, and I really did not intend to do that. But now they expect me to be available for them to complain about our boss. I mean, they don't even do a good job, and our boss has a bad reaction to that. I personally don't get as much heat because I do my job well. They honestly bring this on themselves, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This is a really funny situation to be stuck in. You're just doing this job to make ends meet, and you are faking these pleasantries, and now suddenly you're the popular person at the lunch table, and everybody wants to eat lunch with you. But secretly, you're like, I don't want to be here, get away from me. That is seriously hilarious to me. But considering your circumstance, I completely understand where you're coming from. You are stretched incredibly thin. You've got a lot going on, you're very busy, and you just want to enjoy that time during your lunch break to just be there for yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think obviously communication is a wonderful thing. If you just say to them, guys, I really just want to be left by myself and just relax, and then maybe explain your situation, they would probably be more inclined to let you just have your space. And I think it's important to remember that the word no is a complete sentence. Like, it really is okay to say, no, I don't want to come along. No, I don't want to have plans or anything like that. I don't think anybody would blame you considering your schedule. I mean, think about it. Your schedule is really tight. You have a lot of things going on in your life and a lot of chainsaws in the air that you're juggling right now. And sure, none of this is permanent. It's only a temporary situation. So maybe that can be some kind of silver lining to hold on to. But honestly, if you don't want to eat with anybody for lunch, I think just saying, hey, I don't want to eat with you, literally will probably solve all your problems. My entitled boss ends up in federal prison after he threatens to deport his employees and refuses to pay people their proper wages. And I'm so happy to have played some kind of role in him getting put in jail because this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. So I have a good friend by the name of Mary. That's not her real name. She is a sweet and caring mother of 2 young children. She is also a widow and was an illegal immigrant. Now, she came over here in early 2008 with her husband and 1-year-old daughter, and she was pregnant with her second kid on the way. He worked long hours as a field worker, often 60 to 70 hours a week. They'd been in this country maybe half a year when disaster struck. Her husband passed away in an automobile crash, and this was on the way to work one morning. She did what she had to do. She got a job at a local donut shop and cafe. At first, she was happy because everyone but the owner was an immigrant, and she had much in common with her coworkers. And the boss told her that she could work many hours, which she really needed. But it quickly became apparent apparent that there was a dark underside to this shop. The owner would only hire illegal immigrants. He told them that if they worked hard for him, he would take care of them. But if they didn't, he'd call immigration and have them deported. Then he would tell them that they all had to work 48 hours a week, and he didn't believe in overtime. He scheduled them for 6 days a week, regular time, and there were no sick days and no vacation days. She came to me and asked what to do. I informed her that what the boss was doing was very illegal, that he was violating Department of Labor regulations, and he was counting on her fear to keep her quiet. And she then did one of the bravest things I've ever seen in my life. She made that call to the Department of Labor, knowing that she could get fired and knowing that she and her children could get deported. Well, the Department of Labor came down and did an investigation and found that the boss owed his employees over $27,000 just for the overtime in question. The boss eventually reached an agreement that he would pay all of his employees the back wages and he would get all of this owed money back to them on an agreed date. But things don't quite go as planned, as this is the part that absolutely sends him to federal prison. He calls each employee one at a time into his office. He hands them a check for the overtime they are owed, and for each employee, it's just over $3,000. He tells them to endorse the check because he needs to photocopy it to send it to the Department of Labor. They comply, he copies it, and then he leans over and runs it through the shredder. He tells them that if anyone complains to the feds, that they'll all get deported, and then screams at them to go back to work. And then this guy actually has the guts to send those copies to the Labor Department, which is just total arrogance on his part. She comes to me crying that she needed that money. What can she do now? Well, folks, this jerk is going down. So I'm the one who drops the dime on my boss. The local paper had carried the story when he'd agreed for the restitution, so it was only a matter of time and a few clicks away to find the pertinent information I needed. I called the department's office in the state capitol and was transferred to the original investigators. I explained to them what Mary had told me and her fears if she complained. They were amazed at this audacity and they vowed to look into it. Usually, the Fed machine grinds slowly, if at all, but this was too much for the Department of Labor. In just 2 months, a federal grand jury handed down a 10-count indictment for concealment by trick and making false statements to the U.S. Department of Labor, and for willful failure to pay overtime to his employees. This boss was a complete idiot. It turns out that a conviction for concealment by trick and making false statements carries a maximum penalty of at least 5 years in prison, as well as a $250,000 fine, if not both. A conviction for willful failure to pay overtime carries a maximum penalty of 6 months imprisonment and a $10,000 fine as well. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in jail. I don't know if he served the whole sentence. In terms of a happy ending to this story, the boss went to jail in the end of 2011. Mary and her coworkers stayed on at the donut shop, which was run fairly successfully by the boss's wife. No one was deported, and I don't know about the others, but Mary became a U.S. citizen in the fall of 2016. She has since remarried, and the kids are doing so well in school. She now works as a secretary at a local company, making far more than she ever did slinging donuts. That really is a nice way to end the story, but also that boss is crazy. You seriously want to mess around with the Department of Labor? Like, no, that's not going to happen. The federal government absolutely will chew you up and spit you out. And you know what? That guy deserved every second of jail time he was going to get. He was threatening to deport his employees if they said anything. That is so unbelievably toxic. But it's honestly so good to see that he got exactly what he deserved. This guy's a piece of garbage, and hopefully nobody ever has to be affected by this guy ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend is claiming that I don't have anything going on in my life, and I'm so frustrated that he said that, and I seriously don't know what to do. So recently, my boyfriend has been feeling like I don't do much with my life. For context, we're both military living overseas. I've already expressed to him I wanted to take my last summer here to travel, since I have a lot of upcoming trips planned. I do a lot of solo traveling, which includes a lot of logistics of planning these trips. I have taken time off from school because of the trips that I have planned this summer, and family are coming out so I can be fully present with them. I am completely well off financially, my car is paid off, I have absolutely no debt, and I can afford my life. I also have a significant amount of money in savings, and I also do a lot of trading on the side. I have a retirement account, and I spend a lot of my time working out and meal prepping. I have also met all of my goals when it comes to my nutrition and bodybuilding. I do have a lot of free time on my hands at my job, but I knew this going into the job, and it doesn't bother me at all. He, on the other hand, does not have a lot of free time in his job. I know full and well that he isn't as financially stable as me due to his own life choices that I don't judge. In In fact, the past couple of months, I have spent my time getting my advanced open water scuba certification and also entirely renovating a building using power tools and learning new skills doing so. But time and time again, he brings up that I do nothing at work and that I have way too much free time. This morning, he simply said he doesn't have bandwidth and that he has been extremely busy pursuing his master's degree and dealing with work. This is something he has brought up multiple times and essentially holds it over my head, claiming that I have nothing going on in my life. Therefore, I have decided to pursue my own personal training certification and signed up for a class that I don't even want to take right now due to all the things that he said that I listed above. I just would appreciate it if he would stop informing me that I do not have anything going on with my life, and it honestly feels really insulting. When I express this to him, his rebuttal is that I am making him feel bad and doing the same thing by insulting him, by stating that I feel like he is using how busy he is as an excuse to not address the problems within our relationship. I mean, am I missing something here? This is all so very frustrating and I seriously don't know what to do. It sounds like your boyfriend's jealous that you not only make more money than him, but also that you have all this free time. You can do whatever you want. What is he talking about? You're not doing anything with your life. It sounds like you're doing a lot of different things. You're doing what you love with the money and the time you've earned. And you've worked for this. This wasn't just handed to you. If anything, he's probably frustrated that he can't have the same. He is having to work extremely hard just to make ends meet in his life. And that clearly frustrates him when he sees you going off and doing whatever you want. So in my opinion, I think any kind of problems he has literally has nothing to do with you. He sounds incredibly insecure, and it sounds like he doesn't appreciate you at all. If he's unhappy with his situation, then he needs to address his own needs and not try to shame you for doing things that you enjoy. My boyfriend is constantly inviting other people onto our private dates, and it's honestly starting to get annoying, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my boyfriend has a bad habit of inviting other people whenever we make plans, be it our friends, his family, anybody. You can guarantee that for most things, there will always be someone else there. At first, it became a bit of a joke. Often he wouldn't realize that something was a date and would just invite other friends in the same way as a normal plan. We've joked about this a lot, but it's starting to take a toll on me. This year, we've been incredibly lucky to book 2 holidays. One is a big group and the other is just us. The latter was initially booked so that we'll ask some friends if they want to join us, if they can get the time off from work. But equally so, if it is just the 2 of us, we'd be happy with that as well. This led to my boyfriend inviting numerous friends who couldn't make it, followed by even more attempts to ask friends who weren't able to come. I'd say probably 10 people in total, and now he's offered the holiday to his younger sister, as well as one of her friends to join us. Now, I'd hate to feel like a spoiled brat or contradict myself, as I'm very fortunate to have these holidays in the first place, and I did agree that other people could come along, but it really feels like he's searched high and low in a desperate attempt to find someone to join us. I mean, what's wrong with it just being a holiday for the 2 of us? The same thing quite often tends to happen with anything that could be considered a date. Getting some food or going for drinks, going to the movie theater, or any other kind of activity. You name it, and someone else is always there. While he is always really polite about it, and he would always ask me if I would mind if a certain person was invited, that's only ever after he's already asked them about it, and then if I said no, I would come off as really rude if I objected. It's also worth noting, because of money and also COVID, that we've only actually had 1 holiday abroad, just the 2 of us. This was last summer to Portugal, where we ended up being sick in bed for most of it, which honestly couldn't be helped. So this year, I really expressed my desire for a redo holiday with just the 2 of us. It's a conversation we've had a few times, but clearly, if I'm making this post, it's something that's still bothering me. Also, we have no problem spending time alone together, and within the house itself. We don't live together, but we see each other on the weekends. We are more than fine with alone time and hanging out with just the 2 of us. Neither of us have the money or time off work to book anything else this year. So while I would love to get a holiday in the diary for just the 2 of us to look forward to, I just don't think it's possible right now. Why does my boyfriend keep doing this? What should I do? Honestly, I think it kind of sounds like you need to communicate more clearly what you want and don't want, because right now you're just not saying anything. You need to learn how to say no, I don't want anyone else here, I want it to just be the 2 of us. Maybe explain to him that you want more quality time between the 2 of you, and you don't want an entire group of people to come along for everything you guys do. And maybe this is a case where your boyfriend just doesn't know what's going on, and maybe he just likes having his family and friends come along to spend time with you and him. Maybe this really is an innocent desire, and he's not trying to like ruin plans or anything like that. But I honestly think if you set up some kind of boundary and say, hey, this specific activity is a date between the 2 of us, or something something like that, it can hopefully help clue him in that you know what, you just want to spend time between the two of you. And hopefully if you do that, he can slowly pick up that you don't want everybody to come along to everything that you do. Am I the jerk for leaving my sick husband at home so that I could attend a birthday party on our behalf? So my husband by the name of John, that's not his real name, has been in bed with the flu for about a week now. He's quite miserable and he's got headaches, nausea, and a fairly high fever. So I've been working from home to be able to keep an eye on him throughout the day. It was my younger sibling's birthday on Saturday, and my husband and I were invited over to my parents' house to celebrate. On Friday, John told me he wasn't feeling up to the children's birthday party, which is completely understandable. I wouldn't necessarily want to be around rowdy children if I was sick either. So I decided that I'd go there on my own, bring over the presents, stay for an hour or two, and be back home before dinner. To be honest, after spending days stuck in our flat together, taking care of my husband, I was quite grateful for the opportunity to get outside for a few hours. When I told John as much, he didn't comment on it, but he did seem a bit grumpy afterwards. Saturday came and I drove over to my parents' house in the afternoon, and for some context, they only live about 20 minutes away. I left John with some painkillers, some tea, and some tissues on the nightstand, so he wouldn't need to get up while I was gone. I told him he could call me in case something happened though. The party went great and I got back home after 2 hours without any calls from John, so I assumed everything had gone well. However, he was frowning all evening, and when I asked whether he was alright, he called me selfish for leaving him alone and accused me of not caring about his well-being. He told me I should have stayed at home with him instead of having fun on my own while he was miserable. He has since been giving me the silent treatment whenever I tried to talk to him about it. It's been a few days and I thought he'd have calmed down by now, but it still seems like he's sulking about, and I'm starting to wonder whether his reaction is reasonable or if I'm the jerk in this situation. What should I do? You are not the jerk in this situation. Your husband is being a complete baby about this. He was sick. Why on earth should you have to stay home and take care of him when he's a fully grown adult who absolutely can take care of himself? For some context, the husband in this situation is 26 years old. There's no reason why he can't take care of himself and have some kind of autonomy over his life. Like seriously, why should you have to stick at home and not be there and make a presence for the family at this birthday party? I mean, you already bought presents for the kid. What are you supposed to do? Just turn around and return it at the store? That's not fair for anybody, and it's a massive waste of time and money. And don't get me wrong, I know that the flu really does suck. It can affect people in different ways, but your husband is being incredibly immature, and if anything, he's just projecting his jealousy onto you because you were able to get out of the house, and that is clearly something he's not able to do right now, and that obviously upset him. So hopefully he can straighten up his act and stop acting like such a child, because giving you the silent treatment simply because you went to a birthday party and he couldn't make it is honestly incredibly immature, and you don't deserve that in the slightest. My future fiance is refusing to come with me to visit my family after my uncle passed away, and even though I've done the same for him, I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. So my uncle just passed away under tragic circumstances, and my boyfriend is refusing to come with me and saying that he isn't obligated to visit my family with me ever at all. We've been together for 7 years, and he says he wants us to get married and have children. He gets on very well with my family and they adore him. They even treat me better when he's around. He is incredibly self-centered when it comes to supporting me or visiting them. Members of my family keep asking me why I'm always there alone, and my mother has started to feel disrespected that he wouldn't come visit with me despite him being in town. I even have to keep making excuses for him. Not only am I becoming embarrassed, I'm starting to doubt his sincerity towards me and our relationship. I preface this by saying I've been to visit his family many times. There has even been some occasions where a certain aggressive member of his family had been verbally awful towards me. He didn't have my back in these situations that were clearly not my fault. Although I appreciate and respect them, his family has caused me to be upset a notable amount of times, and a couple of those times he's admitted that it's him causing the conflict. For example, coming home drunk and acting awful while I tried to sober him up and just try to calm him down. He would then blame me for it, causing trouble with his mother. He apologized and admitted to causing the problems, but it created an insane amount of trouble. He also seems to revert to acting like a child when around his family, and I've told him I find it distressing and uncomfortable to be around. Now, despite these things, I always still come around. I always offer support as well as friendship, because I was under the impression that these people are my future family also, and I'm duty bound to treat them with kindness and respect. Now, I bought us a car because he was complaining he didn't get to see his family enough. One day he woke me up to say that his mother had fallen ill and was in a coma. I woke up immediately. I packed our bags. I even booked hotels and transport. Eventually, she did pass away, but I helped his family arrange the funeral and even helped out buying everyone clothes to attend the funeral. It cost me well over $1,000, and I was there for him every step of the way. Now, to circle back to me, I've just now found out about the death of my uncle, and guess what? He asked me to buy him another car. I said this time I will loan you the money, but I will need you to take me to my family so I can make arrangements. He said, fine, I'll drop you off then. I said, no, please come with me for the day. I have many siblings and I'd like him to not only support me, but also get some time with my family as we're supposed to be getting engaged. But when I said this, he said no. He said he can't be bothered. I'm literally asking him to just be by my side through this. And he ended up shouting at me that it's a waste of his time and that he'd rather be doing something fun. I honestly have no words. I told him that I'm thinking about us and I'm thinking about splitting up over his selfishness and disrespect. I love him and I want us to be together, but I'm turning 39 this year. I don't have time to plead with him to do the bare minimum. It seems like everything's perfect, but only as long as he's getting his own way and never has to make any effort. I honestly don't understand why he's behaving this way, and I'm deeply upset. I'm going through a deep feeling of grief right now as I'm thinking I'm gonna have to leave this man that I'm supposed to be marrying, and it's starting to become an unbearable weight upon me, and I seriously don't know what to do. Your boyfriend sounds awful. Seriously, you were there for him when his mother passed away. You made all these sacrifices just to get things going for his family. And now that you're asking him to literally return the favor, he's turning his back on you and saying, no, I would rather do anything else. This just doesn't sound fun. But like, of course it's not fun. You're going to a funeral. There's been a death in your future wife's family. The least you can do is try and be there for her. Honestly, the way he's acting is a massive red flag because right now he is showing some true colors. And in my opinion, this is something you absolutely should not ignore. Am I the jerk for crying to my husband about my mother-in-law coming over all the time? Here's what happened. So my husband and I had a baby 3 weeks ago. My parents, especially my mother-in-law, have been extremely helpful in helping with the baby. She cleans up, picks up our clothes, and does our laundry every day. She cooks us meals, sleeps over, and does the night shift so that we can sleep, and will pretty much do anything we need from her. I am grateful for everything that she does. The problem is that we live in a studio apartment, and having her over all the time makes it really difficult for me. I'm 3 weeks postpartum, and I'm still figuring out my baby, breastfeeding, and pumping. It is extremely hard to do that with my mother-in-law in the studio with us. Despite this, I let her come over because she's been extremely helpful. Yesterday though, she did something which I felt was very inappropriate. She had slept over for 2 nights doing the night shift with the baby and spent 3 days with us. I was so happy when she finally left after 3 days and could finally just relax and enjoy my baby. Then she texted me asking when was a good time to drop off laundry and lunch. I was a bit annoyed because she already had spent 3 days over here and I hadn't asked for laundry or lunch to be dropped off and I just needed my space for the day. She also made sure to write in her text message that she was dropping off and not staying. Then she came over, her husband dropped her off and left, and she starts cleaning up. I was literally in shock that she was staying in our apartment, not being invited, even after saying that she wasn't staying. I was visibly upset, so she decided to step out, and my husband and I got into a huge fight, and he called me ungrateful, and basically said that I have to accept her being over all the time if I want her to help out. Then they both guilted me and made me feel ungrateful because I don't want her in my space because she's doing everything for us. I am extremely grateful for her help, but she is overstaying her welcome and she is crossing boundaries. So am I the jerk for being overwhelmed by this and getting annoyed with her despite all of the help that she's providing? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. I can totally understand how you're like, I really want to have my own space and I really need to have some kind of boundary set up. I think you probably need to say what that boundary is and discuss that with your husband, who's clearly not being very helpful. But you know what? That is not a bad thing to say, okay, we need some space. I can understand if they pop by and spend some time at night or even stop by just to help you out, but 3 days in a row sleeping in your apartment, that's a little bit much. So I can completely understand how you need some space. There may be some kind of compromise here where she can still come over and help out, but not spend every waking moment of your life in your house. But honestly, that needs to be discussed with your husband, because from the sounds of it, he is not doing anything to help out. And right about now would be a good time for him to inform his mom that you absolutely need some space. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. AmITheA.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.